Are we live? Hold on 1 second, folks. Apparently, Facebook says that you can't go on for longer than 8 hours or something like that. There is the thing. For anyone who's still watching, thank you so much for sticking with us. There were a bunch of people who were watching all the way through to the very end of our broadcast previously, but apparently Facebook gets mad when you broadcast for more than 8 hours continuously. So our friend Crystal is going to hold on one second. Take your time. Our friend Crystal is going to take a break in this moment while they were talking about all the drama. And here's the thing about the entertainment industry is that I think a lot of people like to or will often kind of blow it out of proportion and say, oh, well, the entertainment industry is so easy because it's a thing you want to do. Like, it's so easy. You don't have to go to school for it. And so they like to think that because of that, because it's something we want to do, it's less valid, it is worth less to individuals. And that is not the case, because we have to overcome all of these prejudices and all of these unique situations. As you were hearing from both my situation and also from Crystal, who will be back with us in just one moment, who has to go take a break because she's been with us on the air for like 4 hours, and I've been on the air for literally 8 hours now, talking about what it's like being an Asian originally it was being an Asian magician in the industry, talking about the 103rd anniversary of now, the death of Chung Ling Soo, which was the stage persona of William Ellsworth Robinson, who, if you don't know about, you weren't here with us earlier, please Wikipedia William Chung Ling Soo. Look that up. It's a wild adventure, and you won't believe that it happened. And yet, it did. Absolutely did. And so I have been on the air for the last 8 hours with fellow Asian magicians and also fellow Asian entertainers. Everything from magicians to animators, to wrestling announcers, to now my lovely friend Crystal, who is involved in the burlesque and variety performing arts world. Bob says, you've been drinking all night? Yes. I mean, is there any way to spend all night? I mean, for me, yeah, absolutely. Hopefully Illusion Vodka. I've ran out of Illusion Vodka, mate. Bob Kavoris created Illusion Vodka, and it is delicious. He has a regular, just like plain vodka, and also like a dark cherry vodka, and it's quite nice. Anyways, but I'm here to answer any questions you may have about being an Asian magician or just an Asian in the entertainment industry. What entertainment industry, you might ask? I never met much acclaim in the world of stand-up comedy or acting, but I've had a bit of experience in them. In so much that, you know, I did a bunch of open mics as well as went on to a little bit more in the stand-up world, including some acclaim in the singing world, as well as some acclaim in, what else did I do? I was in the movie Superbad. Like, I have done some things, and so I've had a bit of experience, and so has Crystal. Hello, Crystal. Welcome back. Hello. And so we are talking about being an Asian personality, being an Asian in the entertainment industry, period, in 2021, originating in magic, and now moving on to other things entirely, just talking about the world, and just how interesting it can be. So you were talking about Beetle House and how they completely screwed you over and were not great to you.
Continue. Yeah. Okay. So just in review for anyone who's coming in, basically we signed a contract with them, my company Freak Show Deluxe.
Mm-hmm.
We signed a contract with them that was exclusive. We were the exclusive providers of their sideshow and circus entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
In the first 6 months, they tried to deny that the contract existed, say that somebody else signed it, and because a partner left, that it was no longer valid, which is all bullshit.
Everyone say it. Bullshit! Wonderful. You all sounded great. Continue.
And they also went back on their word to pay us special events rates, opposed to our normal nightly rate working at just the restaurant. Despite the fact that I don't think I mentioned this before, we actually ended up agreeing to our normal nightly rate because they said it was going to be open to the public. After some back and forth, they were like, it's going to be open to the public. So we're like, okay, if that's the case, we'll do it for our normal rate.
Yeah.
And then on Halloween, when I simply asked if there was any way to get our performers paid just a little bit more or give them some sort of a bonus.
Because it's a holiday premium.
Because it is
at any night, a performer, especially a variety performer or burlesque or some kind of a geek performer, could easily make so much more money doing a private event on Halloween. Absolutely. Yes.
Yep.
Continue.
Absolutely. And again, for anyone who wasn't watching our previous stream, minimum $1,000 for a very short 5 to 10 minute act. That's pretty standard. So after asking for just a small pay bump or bonus or something, we were told not only no, but you're not working Halloween anymore. And if you ever ask for any sort of a raise, you will be fired. Yeah. So they hired other entertainers in. Surprise, surprise, one of them bailed on them last minute. And surprise, surprise, just like the special event, they tried to poach our performers. Luckily, because of the relationship that I have with the people in the industry, the performer they tried to poach came to me instead of saying yes. And especially because it was the beginning. And in hindsight, I shouldn't have done this and I wouldn't do it again. But at the time, I was like, you know what? This is a really cool place. I love the people that I work with. And I want to show them that I am invested.
Sure.
So we're going to allow you to say yes to this offer. But I will say I am proud of myself for like drawing some sort of boundary, because what they wanted, they found another sword swallower who, from witness accounts, they were not impressed with. Surprise.
Well, then it can't be Brett Loudermilk. I don't know who else it would. I don't know many sword swallows. I know you and Brett Loudermilk, and I think that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, we're a rare breed. I don't remember her name. I do remember that someone described her act to me as basically she walked out, said, "Hi, my name is," whatever her name is. And I taught myself this when I was whatever, 16, 18 years old. And she like swallowed a sword, pulled it out, and bowed.
And that was it. It's like,
yeah. And they were like,
my stepdad touched me in weird ways, so I had to deal with this shit. And then swallow the sword, and then you're just like,
right?
What?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
And I think someone told me they approached her and were like, can you talk some more? And she was like, I mean, yeah, okay. And that was her response. It was like, I guess I'm just going to tell the story of when I was whatever teenage amount years old, and this is what I taught myself to do.
Something, anything. By the way, Daniel, if you're awake now and you want to rejoin the stream, let us know, Daniel. You can totally come back in. I'll send you the link. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. So, so they had this outside performer, sword swallower, and they had our performer that they tried to poach, but I ultimately allowed to work that night. And they wanted them to go on stage at the same time. And one of the reasons why we're big on exclusivity is because we know we can trust our performers. We don't know that we can trust whatever other performers have been hired on by whatever event. So instead of allowing people like, the guests who have very little discernment between companies or performers think that they are the same company, that these people are a part of us, we would just rather have full exclusivity and have control over all of the circus entertainment so that we know it is quality, and whatever people are associating with that place, they know is us. we made an exception in this one instance, and they
Sure.
tried to put them on stage at the same time. I said, absolutely not.
Okay. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
give you my performer, but I will not let you put them on stage at the same time, a part of the same show. You will put your performer on her own set. You will put ours on with our background
Yeah.
and our music. That's it.
Mhm.
That's what you have to do. And they were so angry. They were so angry. They're like, it's too short. I don't care, because you told us not to come in, and I'm being very nice by giving you our performer that you tried to go behind my back to get.
Mhm.
So this is just within the first 6 months. It never really got better. There was always this kind of stress of like, you're replaceable, like we'll just get somebody else. And unfortunately, I was very emotionally attached to not only the place, but the people who immediately worked there.
Mhm.
And also, like, the owner of the company that I worked for, he is probably too empathetic as I am, and was like, this is giving regular work and allowing our performers to support themselves. So even though the company is at a loss, I'm going to allow this to continue. So fast forward, it is probably 2 years later, and all sorts of stuff has happened in between, mind you. But their lawyer approaches me and says, hey, we're opening a new spot, and it's a circus themed restaurant, and we want you to be a partner. But we don't want Freak Show Deluxe involved. So this is very much a poaching situation.
It wasn't one of the Houston brothers, was it?
No, but they were related at some point.
Okay, continue. Sorry.
Um,
This is all inside LA stuff.
yeah.
We'll talk about, yeah.
Yeah. So my response as an ethical human and performer is, I will not leave my contract. I will not circumvent the company that introduced us. And the lawyer's response was like, I'm happy to get you out of that contract. And I'm like,
That's
no.
a great response.
So what I do is I'm very, right?
Yeah.
So I approached the owners of the company that I work with, and I'm like, hey, they're offering me a lot of money. I think this is something that not necessarily is like a life goal, but yeah, seriously.
Yeah. The lawyer says, do you want more of the same shit on a new contract? Yeah, basically. Yeah.
And honestly, and I'll get to this later, it probably would have been worse shit on a new contract.
Right? He's like, oh, you're desperate enough or willing to violate your principles to do this thing? All right, well, then we can ask for more.
Right,
Continue.
exactly.
Yeah.
So my response as an ethical human was to go to the owners of my company and tell them exactly what was going on. Hey, they want me to do this. It would be a lot of money. It would allow me to do a lot of awesome things. And this is something I'm interested in. And their response, because I have always been good to them, was, we support you. We will let you out of this portion, this non-circumvention clause in your contract, and you can go with our blessing. They didn't ask anything more of me. But again, because I am an ethical human and performer, my response to Beetle House or Hollywood Goth or whatever the fuck they're calling themselves now was, I am out of that portion of my contract. I can do this with the blessing of the people who introduced us. However, I do ask that you continue to employ them in one way, shape, or form because they introduced us.
Right.
That is their business, is to connect performers with clients. And they essentially ghosted me. They never talked to me about the idea ever again, right? So time goes on. Their director of operations at the time was absolutely horrible. Like, supporter of that dude that was in the White House that we don't remember his name.
Oh God, I can't.
I have
remember.
no
He was
idea,
president
dude.
for like 4 years. I can't remember his name.
I really can't remember.
Whatever. Continue. Sorry. What were you saying?
But yeah, so this guy was horrible. He would like pit people against each other, very manipulative, probably a narcissist. And he brought me on as like a manager of all entertainment at some point, and almost arbitrarily decided to stop paying me. He thought I was booking burlesque shows for fun to bring my friends in, because that's a thing people do, and all sorts of very problematic things. But what it comes down to is they ended up realizing that they had to have contracts with people to protect themselves. And when I started calling them out on some of their bullshit, they tried to get me to sign a contract with a gag order in it.
Jesus.
And like, as performers, we have all signed NDAs, right?
Yeah, right. That's for anyone not in the entertainment industry, NDA stands for non-disclosure agreement. That's where we literally can't talk about our association for certain things. That's anyone who joins a Marvel movie has to sign it. They literally can't talk about the things that they've done. It's a non-disclosure agreement, yes. Yeah. And by the way, everyone, please welcome back to the stream Daniel Gastelum! Back for more. Sorry, Crystal, continue.
Yeah. So an NDA is pretty standard. Yeah. But this went beyond that. And I'm very lucky to have lawyers who are friends, and one of them is specifically a contract lawyer. And this clause was a red flag to me. I was like, I have signed so many contracts. I've never seen anything like this. And this certainly doesn't seem like a normal confidentiality clause. Right. So he took one look at it. And he was like, absolutely, do not sign this. This is not a confidentiality clause. This is a gag order. This is something that usually you only put in like a divorce contract when it's particularly messy, so one party can't talk shit on the other. But it was basically...
This is so that Johnny Depp can't complain about Amber Heard's abuse. Yes, continue. By all
yeah. Yes. And like, for anybody who isn't familiar with these kinds of terms, the reason why it is so unacceptable to sign or to even think about putting into a contract is because basically any sort of communication, and we're talking like email, text message, verbal conversation, nothing could be disclosed to anyone. So what they were doing was protecting themselves from any bad behavior that they had done.
Mm-hmm. Neftali says, clearly you didn't sign this. We're having this discussion.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And it was a direct reaction to me having called them out in a private forum, mind you, not a public one. So it was pretty appalling. And the last straw for me was that when the GM or the director of operations was called out for multiple, like, completely unethical, unapproved behaviors. And this involved like under the table money, just to put that into perspective for people. The owner decided to back him and not me, who had worked for him for almost 3 years. This director of operations had been around for less than 1. And that was the last straw for me. They tried to pretend like we didn't have a contract. They tried to poach me, and this guy clearly didn't have my back. And since then, he's like messaged me and been like, fuck that guy. It's like, yeah, fuck that guy, but maybe you should have said fuck that guy when I needed you to.
Right.
And like, I can't, to bring this back to like why we're here, I can't tell you how many times I've thought to myself, would I have been put in this situation if I was, first and foremost, a man, and second, a white man? You know?
Yeah.
People think that, especially because specifically Asian, we are subservient, we are passive. We're not going to fight them.
or yeah, not even subservient or passive, but just so much as like, oh well, they're good people, like they're not gonna cause a trouble, they're not gonna cause a stink, they're not gonna argue or disagree or whatever. It's a combination of factors, and it's one of those things where once again I can't claim 100% that I know that it's because I am. That work? Okay. That it's because I'm Asian, but I also don't know 100% that it wasn't because I was Asian.
Yep.
And that is a weird situation to be in, where in the back of your mind, you don't know for a fact that it wasn't because you were Asian. Anyways, Brianna says, I'm so sorry. I stand against all the hate and bigotry against anyone, and I stand against Asian hate. Thank you so much. Is that so hard to say? No, it's not. It's like, how hard is it to say, hey, I condemn white supremacy, and then, what was his name? Oh, God, I can't remember his name. Says, Proud Boys stand back and stand by. You're like, that wasn't the response that we needed here. But what's his name that I cannot remember for the life of me?
Oh, Lex Luthor.
Yeah, no, Lex Luthor didn't have hair. This guy had really shitty hair, and I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
It's gone out of my head. I can't remember it, and I won't remember it. Anyways, so once again, everyone, for anyone who's still watching right now, thank you so much for still watching. I am Naathan Phan, and I've got with me Crystal Curio and Daniel Gastel, and we are all Asian. We are all Asians in the entertainment industry in various regards, and just talking about and look how easy it is, Brianna Garms, fuck white supremacy. Is that so hard to say? No, it's not. Now listen,
Brianna,
there's nothing wrong with being proud of whatever it is that your background is.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's when you are glad that that's your background and not something else, or you look down on other people for not being that background, then there's a problem. That's what it is. And that is literally the definition of white supremacy. It's thinking that being white is better than being anything else, and to a worse degree, that anything else deserves or should be wiped off the planet. And that's what we disagree with.
Yep.
That's
also like something that multiple people have brought up is like when you talk about white supremacy, essentially they're taking pride in this imagined white culture. And while there is like Western society, there is not one white culture. That's a myth,
It's like saying there's an Asian culture.
Exactly. And there is a Chinese culture, there is a Japanese culture. We can be proud of those things, and you can be proud to be Irish, you can be proud to be Scottish.
Absolutely. Proud to be French, proud to be Australian, proud to be English, Welsh, whatever it is, Canadian. That's all good and fine. Brianna says, we're all human, no one better person is better than another. Yes, but I'm better than a Nazi.
Yes.
I think lots of us are better than Nazis.
Yeah.
I would say most of us are better than Nazis. There's nothing wrong with saying you're better than a Nazi.
Yep. And you know what? And this is like, for some people, this might not make entire sense, but for anyone who has been in any sort of, and especially like a punk subculture, something that I realized the day after the shooting in Atlanta, my knee-jerk reaction, and I think this is probably because...
Oh, she froze again. While she has frozen, while we're waiting for her to return, hold on, Crystal froze. We're going to look at Brianna's, well, come on, you know what I meant. Yes, absolutely know what I meant. And Naftalia said something wonderful. I'm a racist. I grew up in the USA, and that's my education. I'm working on it. I'm getting better. And as a child, as a Holocaust survivor, to hell with white supremacists. Absolutely 1,000%.
Damn
Thank
straight.
you, Naftalia. There absolutely is systemic racism, and there's nothing wrong with admitting I am racist because it is built into my upbringing. We all have racism built into our upbringings. It's being able to admit that it is built into our upbringings, and we're working on it, and we're trying to do better. And that is the thing with a lot of people, is they refuse to acknowledge that. They refuse to say, well, I'm not racist. Like, no, motherfucker, you are. Like, we're all a little. I'm a little bit racist. You're a little bit too. We're all a little bit racist. Like that. The song from Avenue Q is absolutely true. We are all, to a degree, a little bit racist because of our upbringings, and if we can acknowledge that, and then move on from that, and then find, you know what, I can do better. You're right. This thing I said is part of this thing that happened when I was 5 years old, and I'm so sorry that that's still stuck with me, and that is ridiculous, and I apologize for that, and let's move on from that. I apologize for that, and yeah, let's I can do better. Let's do better together when that happens. Yeah, that is what we kind of all should strive to do, is that thing.
Agreed.
Yeah. I'm just letting Crystal know that we lost her. And she's back. There it is. Hold on, wait a minute. And hello, you're back. We lost you.
Yay.
Yes. Well, you missed an amazing comment from Natalie saying, I'm a racist. I grew up in the USA and that's my education. I'm working on it. I'm getting better. And as a child of a Holocaust survivor, to hell with white supremacists. That's a great way to say it. You know, like, I'm racist, but fuck white supremacists. Yeah. That is not racist. That's another thing entirely.
Yeah. You know, and it's that thing we were talking about earlier where it's like, just acknowledge it. Acknowledge that you have done something wrong. Maybe you don't know everything. And do your best to do the work. That's all.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a difference between saying, you're right, let's do better, and Deutschland, über alles. You're like, there's a big difference between those two responses. Yeah.
Yep. Tomorrow belongs to me.
Yeah. Brianna Garm says, growing up in Orange County, I thought everyone of Latin descent was Mexican. And it wasn't until I moved to LA in my early 20s that I realized it's racist and started learning about all Latin cultures. Absolutely. Yep. Once again, someone learning, you're like, hey, I thought this thing growing up for the longest time. And it wasn't until later on, it's like, oh, I was wrong.
Yeah.
I can learn from
being and it's okay to be wrong. I think that's another huge problem with American culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, is like there's so much, and I feel like this is also prevalent in Asian cultures. There's so much pressure to just be right and get it right the first time, and it doesn't have to be that way. That's a toxic way of thinking.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Once again, yes. Once again, everyone, anyone who's still watching at 5:30 in the morning, I'm Naathan Phan. I've been featured on Masters of Illusion and Penn Teller and America's Got Talent and a whole ton of other things. And I'm here with Daniel Gastelum, featured at the Magic Castle. Also a wonderful magician, bizarre magician, and musician known as Squeaky Futons.
Thank you.
Yes, and more importantly, a great friend and human being. And we've got Crystal Curio, recently featured on the Go Big show. Among other things, we've all crossed paths many, many times over the years. And we are just here talking about being an Asian. Originally, he was an Asian in the magic industry, but now we're just talking about being an Asian in the entertainment industry in general. And things that are happening and how people are responding to it. And we have people like Brianna saying, like, yeah, there are things wrong. I just logged on because I woke up. Well, that's fantastic. I hope that you can put us on while you enjoy a breakfast and then drive to your work and have a real life. I hope you have a real life. God, what is life nowadays? What life is just, oh boy.
Yep.
It's like a weird abstract concept. What was it? I've started doing my virtual shows and starting it with this phrase, and recently some friends who watched it were like, this is a great way to open your virtual shows. And I was like, really? I thought it was ill-advised, but all right, I'll keep doing it. Because I will usually do like I'll do like an opening number, like I'll sing and do a magic trick, and then I'll be like, hi everyone, I'm Naathan Phan. Thanks so much for tuning. I'm so glad to be here. Actually, I'm just glad to be anywhere. I'm glad to not be laying on my bed, staring at the ceiling in existential dread. And then like I just kind of go on from there. And like the first time I did, was like, was that too much? That was probably too much. And then a friend was like, no, that's a great way to open. And I was like, all right, cool. Then we can move on from here. So yeah, Brianna says, I work from home, lol, lol, lol. I run multiple businesses. Great. Nice. You can work from home and use us as your podcast. Today, on This Asian American Life, we will discuss the...
Raid Shadow Legends.
Raid what? I don't know what that is. Raid Shadow Legends. Sure, I don't know what that is. Daniel, tell us what Raid Shadow Legends means.
Well, Raid Shadow Legends is the MMORPG thing that is like Squarespace and is a multiplying virus when it comes to podcast ads.
All right then. Okay, I haven't heard of that. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts.
Well, if you use the offer code Magic Asian Man, you'll get 50,000 silver pieces. Probably not, but you could probably pressure them into doing it. Or maybe get Ray-Bans? Ray-Bans? Not Ray-Bans. The headphones that break really easily.
Oh man.
They're made by Ray J.
I have not heard of these things. I don't know what these things are.
Raycons. There you go.
Oh, Raycon. Brianna says, "Oh my god, I love the effects. You know, the techie inside me got happy just from me pulling a mic in close." Yeah, I'm using a Yeti Nano, or sorry, a Blue Yeti. So when I bring my mouth in close, it changes the way it sounds. Hey, if you're looking for a new way to learn new skills, check out, and all that jazz. Because it just sounds different. I think that's just what everyone in NPR does, is they're just this close to their microphone. Today we're looking at anti-Asian sentiment throughout the nation, yet at the same time, people flooding Asian markets. What are we going to do with all these people buying live crabs and letting them live in their bathtubs until they cook them? Just like, I don't know, something just like absolutely...
And then just Phoebe Bridgers all the way through.
I don't know, yeah, exactly. To be honest, I did not understand a word that Daniel just said. How dare you, that's racist. Just because he's Asian, you don't understand response. What he said. What a wonderful, wonderful time we're all having. Once again, everyone, we're just all chilling, hanging out in, like, hour 8... 8.5 hours into me starting this live stream, I'm still here because I have unhealthy sleeping habits. If you want to learn how to become an Ubermensch and never need sleep a day in your life, visit magicasianman.com and you too can learn how to never sleep an hour in your life and still function as a healthy human being. Shut up, mother! I'm coming! Later on, we'll discuss...
Wow, I really love that you just claimed Ubermensch.
Anyways, so Brianna says he takes gamer speak. Yeah, sure. I assume that's what Daniel was doing. I, on the other hand, am just losing my mind slowly and collectively. Naftali says Americans have a habit of lumping groups. I mean, to a degree, yeah, we absolutely, like, it's just kind of like pattern recognition, right? To us, in many ways, it's like, oh, this is the way that we, it's how we can access information more easily, is to create patterns and groups and lump certain things into that. We see everyone from Central and South American as a single culture, and all Northern European descent as the same, as all people of Asian descent are the same culture. There are lots of things that we kind of lump together, absolutely, and we have to realize to a certain degree that is inaccurate and worse, harmful. That's where it comes down to. Yeah. Like, whenever we talk about, like PC culture and that sort of thing, what it ultimately boils down to, in my mind, is this thing harmful? Is this joke you're making harmful? If it's funny, then great. If it's clever, if it's funny, fantastic. If it is harmful, then I have to, say, is it worth the joke? Is it worth getting 5 people in a room to chuckle at this joke that is ultimately harmful to the other 95 people in this room? And that's what I wonder. Brianna asks, is that a digital background or a green screen? Oh, this is this is a green screen. This is a blue screen. This is chroma keyed in. Do you want to see what it looks like behind me? I can absolutely show you.
I can see the blue on your hair actually in the reflection.
Yeah, there's a tiny bit. Absolutely, I'm using OBS, which is fantastic. But it also has limitations. This is what it looks like behind me. This doesn't look cool. I literally have a blue screen behind me. I do have I have a seafoam green curtain that I've got disassembled, but I have a navy blue curtain that I can move in. But this is what I use for these sorts of things because it just looks better. Nobody wants to see this behind me, so let's go back to bing. Hey, everyone!
I usually green screen my burlesque acts these days because of that reason. It's just nice. It's so easy to make it look nice. But going back to what you were saying about comedy, I want to say it might have actually been Daniel before you signed off last time.
Yes.
But somebody said, like, basically, if it's harmful, it's not comedy.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
And
because comedy's all about punching up and not punching down.
exactly,
Yeah.
and that is
Punching down
so
is harmful.
true. Because otherwise, it's just bullying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Comedy is an experiment in empathy.
Yes, that was
Yeah,
it. Yes,
Yeah.
and like, I'm so glad you're back because I really wanted to tell you, like, listening to that, hearing that was so important to me. And I think so many people need to hear that about comedy. So
Like,
thank you.
of course, I cannot take credit for that. I've heard a bunch of my comedian friends mention the ties between good comedy and needing to examine your personal experience. And Thought Slime has a really good few videos about comedy. And
I love Thought Slime. I am so glad you brought them up or him up. For anybody who doesn't know who Thought Slime is an amazing, dorky, nerdy, queer, leftist YouTube personality. And, like, I think especially in these times, incredibly relevant.
yes,
What's their name? What is
Thought
this?
Slime.
Thought Slime.
Thoughts line, like thoughts line?
Yeah. Slime.
Slime.
Yeah.
Oh, thought. Okay, so we're talking thought slime, and this is on YouTube.
Yes.
Hold on 1 second. If you're wondering what we're talking about Thought Slime on YouTube, and that is this right. Yes, Thought Slime?
Correct.
If you're wondering what we're talking about, today we're talking about Thought Slime on YouTube and how Nickelodeon inspired an entire generation to slime their thoughts.
Also a little bit, or I would say probably mostly, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is largely his inspiration.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah. Even just looking at the green screen background that he chooses, you like immediately you will think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But yeah, he does some really cool stuff, and I really love the way he articulates his thoughts. I discovered him very early on in the pandemic, and it was through an anarchist friend of mine. And I've always been like liberal and left leaning, but it was probably funny enough not until I started working for Beetle House where I really started thinking more about leftism, because when I started working for Beetle House, I kind of viewed myself as a boss, and I was very much like, protect your company, tell people like don't share their rates, stuff like that, right?
No,
but after working for this company for a certain amount of time, and by a certain amount of time I mean 6 months, even though I worked there for 2 years and 8 months, I very quickly was like, you know what? This mentality is fucked. And we absolutely need to be sharing our rates. And, you know, when you see people who are doing stunts, like sideshow stunts that are dangerous, getting paid the same amount as an actor, which, like, don't get me wrong, I am also an actor, and it is not easy work. But if you're working for the same amount of time as a sideshow performer, you're essentially acting plus putting your body in danger.
Right.
And you're getting paid the same amount as that person. That's a problem. Even worse, that actor getting paid more than another actor doing the same amount of work just because the other person was amenable to a lower rate. You know, it's like if one person is getting paid $80 for 6 hours and one other person is getting paid $125 for 6 hours, that's not fucking okay.
So I'm curious if you've experienced this. When unfair payment rates come up, believe everyone has gotten this response, but well, life's not fair. Get over it.
Oh
Do
my
you
God.
do you do you have a response to that sort of thing? Because mine is just, yeah, you're right, and then I just leave. I the philosophy of life isn't fair, so I'm going to be an asshole is just something that I don't want to deal with, and it's a sign of poor leadership and that the project isn't worth supporting. And you get it a lot,
Absolutely.
especially in Los Angeles.
Yes, absolutely. Um, and unfortunately, that is a thing that happens too often. But I will say, even when I think back to the point where I was like, 4 years ago, when I was still in that frame of mind of like, don't share your rates because that's what you're conditioned to think as honestly an American.
Right.
If someone had approached me, if anyone had approached me and been like, I found out that, for example, I'll make this very specific. If a magician had approached me and said, hey, I found out that this sideshow performer that you are also giving work is getting paid X amount more than I am,
Right.
and I don't appreciate that, I would have had a conversation with them like, the reason why we thought that was fair is because this person is putting their body in danger and you deal in illusion. But like, please, let's have a conversation. Tell me why you think you deserve the same amount. And honestly, I probably would have just paid them the same amount
Right.
because artists are across the board undervalued.
Agreed.
And I am an empathetic human, but in capitalism, that is so rare. And so many people have that toxic mindset of like, life's just not fair. You don't deserve to have enough money to live. And that's not fucking okay. So, absolutely, I think that anyone that is met with that response should just fucking leave.
And there's a certain level of privilege
Yes.
to saying that. Sometimes you have to take a dangerous job,
Mhm.
and no one should need to do that to survive.
Yep.
But if you can, um, red flags or should always at least be acknowledged and talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that is a theme of the conversation tonight is like, have the uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah.
Have, whatever it is you're feeling, just communicate it.
Yeah. And
Because in pretty much any situation, that communication is going to help, if not solve the problem.
right. And I've been thinking a lot about that since I left the call. That I don't really think there is a bad outcome of talking about it. Uh,
Nope. Well,
you might it well if it's someone you know or someone you want to work with and you can tell that you're on the level enough to where it's a safe conversation.
exactly. And I think that's the distinction, because if you try to have that conversation with somebody who isn't willing to actually listen, it's not going to do any good. And if anything, it's going to do more harm to you. I think you were gone by the time. Yeah, absolutely. You were gone by the time I came on the call. But I was dealing with a situation earlier today where a show that I was on, one of my fellow castmates decided it was okay to use the term China virus when referring to COVID. And I went to our group chat of what I thought was a safe space of some of our fellow castmates, and I was like, hey guys, it's been brought to my attention that this thing is happening. I would really appreciate it if any of you would either engage with him one-on-one, comment, or like at least share to your followers. I don't even care if you call him out or not, but just like some sort of allyship, any level of allyship would be appreciated. And the first probably 5 to 10 responses I got in that small group chat were basically like, It came from China, so I don't see the problem with saying China virus. And why don't you engage with him yourself? And it took hours for one single person to finally come in and be a real ally and not leave me to fend for myself, So it definitely, I think, depends on how much the other person is willing to listen to you, because you can say all of the truthful, valid things that you want, but if the other person is so stuck in their mind, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm really sorry you went through that. That's
Thank you.
And as I said earlier, the thing I have to say to that is like, okay, so if I start calling Jeffrey Dahmer the Wisconsin cannibal, are you okay with that? Technically, he is a cannibal who came from Wisconsin. That's
right.
That is facts, right? So, what could possibly be my intent behind calling someone the Wisconsin cannibal if not to poison you against people who come from Wisconsin? Or if I were to go wider and because we're not talking about if you say the Wuhan flu, or all right, that is specifically from Wuhan, which is a very specific province within China. So if you say China virus, if I just call someone the American killer, if I stop calling it the Zodiac killer and say the American killer, the what? The American serial killer. Wait, what? Yeah, the Zodiac. He is a killer from America. He is an American serial killer. That's what a lot of Americans do. I could name you 6 serial killers right now who came from America. That's the thing that Americans do, right? Is serial kill. The only intention I could have behind that is to poison you against the concept of Americans.
Yeah.
There's no other explanation for phrasing it that way. Yeah. And yes, Naftalia says, if you're not sharing your rates, you can't blame you folks on the scene for undercutting your rate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so one of those things. So when I was working at Teatro Martini, here's one of the things: is we would have dancers who were not only dancers, they were dancers and servers. They would have to show up an hour early. They would have to make sure that they knew the numbers. They would have to serve people. There were 4 of them that were in show, and then another 4 of them who were or 2 of them who were just servers. And it was a whole thing, and they got paid server rates because it's less than minimum wage, because they can make tips. Right, because God knows people in Buena Park, they tip so great. Oh man, boy, those tips. They retired. All of them are retired because they've made so much money on tips. And those people showed up working for minimum wage, which at the time wasn't even $15 an hour. It was maybe what, $8.25, $8.50, $9 maybe $10.50, whatever it was, for those 5 hours a night that they have to show up. Meanwhile. And same thing goes with characters. I think the lead characters were maybe making 75, maybe 90 if they were grandfathered in or were making. So $90 a night to show up at 6 o'clock call for 7:30 show that let out around 10. They were there for a lot, right? For $90. Whereas us specialty acts, and there were 2 of us every night, all of 2 of us, would show up 30 minutes before the show started. Didn't have to run through anything. We just showed up. We put on our little microphones. We did our 2 10-minute acts, maximum 10-minute. We did anywhere from 3 to 8-minute acts. 8-minute was running long, right?
Yeah.
We did 2 3 to 8-minute acts, and we got paid, I'm going to tell you right now, starting wage was $150 for a specialty act.
Well,
and that's cheap. That's real cheap. When I was doing that, and because they really liked me, I got to bargain my way all the way up to $250 a night.
Yep.
$250 to do 2, a total of maybe, let's see, I did 1 3-minute act, and I guess I was going to say 1 3-minute act and 1 8-minute act. So roughly 11 minutes worth of work. Which, granted, in the grand scheme of things, not a lot of work. But I got paid $250 a night to do 11 minutes worth of work, essentially. As opposed to these people had to show up and dance and sing and serve people for 5 fucking hours. And they made minimum wage or $90. Right? That's abysmal in comparison. But also, in the world of specialty entertainment, $250 is also abysmal. But you
Yeah.
take that money under the understanding that you're going to do anywhere from 2 to 5 shows a week.
Yes.
And because you're doing 2 to 5 shows a week, great. Normally I would do 1 or 2 gigs for this rate, but because I'm doing 2 to 5 shows a week and you're guaranteeing me this much work, I will do this because it's peak, non-peak hours, or I'm guaranteed X amount of work or whatever it is. And sometimes we as specialty entertainers, don't get me wrong, we love what we do. That doesn't give you the right to undercharge us for what we do, because we do put in the work to do these things. Because there are absolutely stunt and geek performers who drill nails and things into their faces, staple their bodies, like they cause physical harm to swallow swords. People think it's a gimmick or a gaffe. No, they are genuinely risking physical harm. Who is it? I know people. Who is it? Brett Loudermilk does the act where he swallows the neon light bulb, right? He does the LED thing, but he talks about the neon light bulb and someone swallowing it, and how one night it shattered back in the 60s, and they literally had to step on his chest to crush the glass so that it wouldn't kill him, because big pieces of glass are bad. Tiny pieces of glass will eventually dissolve and you'll be fine. And so it's why eating light bulbs, you got to chew them into tiny fine pieces so they will not. Yeah, so exactly. Scott Hitchcock says, how can you do it at that rate? Volume. Exactly. The only way you can afford to perform. I will not do a kid's birthday party for $250.
No.
But you tell me you get 4 shows a week at $250. I'm like, all right, that'll do. Because I go out and I do 2 5-minute sets a night. All right, that is fine. If you can guarantee me that much more.
Absolutely. And one of the things on the topic of not sharing rates was that our mutual friend, whose name I will not say to protect him, who was booking Teatro and Martini, I reached out to him at some point to be like, hey, I'm struggling with getting my performers paid what they deserve at my venue. Can you tell me what you pay at yours? Because I know they had very similar setups.
Was this person's initials AM?
Yes. So I reached out to him to be like, hey, can you share this information with me? Because I know, like, we were open 5 nights a week. Most of the time, Teatro Martini was open 5 nights a week. I know
at the beginning, yes. Towards the end, it was closer to 2 or 3. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think he told me 3. But he shared with me in confidentiality the rates, like the range of rates that they would offer.
And I was making top tier
specialty entertainment.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I was
you were
making
definitely at the top end of that spectrum.
Yeah.
Yes. But even the minimum they would pay was more than what my people were making.
Wow.
And it sucked because, not by a whole lot. But
you even messaged me about this years ago. I think you might have messaged me about this years ago. And I was like, here's what the starting pay is. And I'm on the high end and I get this.
Exactly. Yeah. And I totally respect that. And there are a lot of people in my industry who gave me the same exact answer. And again, I respect that. The reason why we did it was, first and foremost, because we had bills to pay and this thing could help us do it. Second of all, because we walked inside the doors and we fell in love with it. And that is absolutely a mistake.
Yeah, It's like a whore falling in love with the client. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like, damn it.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
But, this person...
Not that I'm speaking down to whores. Sex work is real work, and
absolutely,
you do what you gotta do.
No.
Absolutely.
Sex workers are great. We love sex workers. But, this mutual friend of ours, he shared with me the rates, and I was not able to use them because of this weird thing that exists in our society, right?
Yeah.
If there was anything that allowed me to do that, he could have told me, he could have given me like printed proof, and I could have taken it to the people running the venue that I was at and been like, hey, this is the standard. This is what's happening.
Oh boy,
And-
I wish you told me that. I would have let you use, like, I will officially share this email. Tell them,
Man.
pay you more. Jesus.
Yeah. And you know, then I could have bumped my performers' rates up, maybe.
Boy.
Although, you know, from what we were talking about earlier and in toward the end of the last stream, I don't know that they necessarily would have said that.
Yeah,
I know
it's
there's
true.
at least one GM who probably would have taken it seriously. And,
Definitely
what's
would have
funny?
been Joe Furlow. Continue.
You know what's funny is the GM who, so basically toward the beginning of our contract, we were asked to do X amount of work, and then it became clear immediately that we had to do Y amount of work.
Uh-huh.
So the GM at that point recognized that work and was like, I'm going to give you guys a raise because I appreciate you and I see that you are the main draw and you are the main reason people aren't complaining about other elements of this.
Mm-hmm.
And he was actually reprimanded by the owner for giving us a raise.
It's that kind of reminds me of how people say, you know, all cops are bastards, all cops are bad. It's like, it's not that all cops or all general managers or all these people are bad. It's just that the ones who speak out and try to advocate for certain things are the ones who are chastised, reprimanded, or fired, or worse, betrayed by their own co-workers. And so that's why we say these things. Like, I don't say fuck the police because I think all police deserve to be fucked, but I think that police as an institution in general,
Yes.
fuck them.
Yes.
Like, that's how that works.
Yes.
Sorry, you were touching
No
your nose. You want to say something?
comments.
Say.
I was just going to say, and then this might be the same thing that Daniel's about to say because I know we have a shared fandom. Thought Slime has an amazing video on ACAB and why it is all cops are bad or bastards.
Once again, on YouTube. That is Thought Slime on YouTube. Folks, check it out.
Do you guys just want to start a Thought Slime reaction video podcast?
Right?
Let's do it.
while
Let's
while we're
Seriously.
here?
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
it'll just be the both of you watching me go, oh my god, it's so true. It'll just be me just clutching my face. Flames on the side of my face.
Oh, just my face. And honestly, that's how I felt for about the last year's flames on the side of my face.
So much, yeah, absolutely.
Seriously, it is exactly what you were just saying. It is individually as humans, these police officers are probably not bad people.
I know like 2 or 3 people who are police officers, and they're in theater and entertainment. And, it's not bad.
Right? But it's just the fact that they are part of this, I guess, institution.
Yeah,
that,
institution's a great way
first
to
of all,
put it. Yeah.
developed out of slavery. If you don't know that,
Ooh, look up the origins of why the police exist. It is literally instituted in racism. Literally birthed out of slavery. Yes, check that out.
But also, like, they reinforce these horrible racist things that American society is built on. It's not that these people are individually bad people. It's that the cops as a whole, like, this is not a healthy institution.
Way to look at human beings.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the same with landlords. It's like there are like small private landlords who are decent people, who are good people even. But the fact that they are charging people to have a roof over their head is unethical and realistically, in the grand scheme of things, inexcusable. But it's a reality that we have to deal with in our society, unfortunately.
Right.
Absolutely. Once again, to anyone who's just joining us, my name is Naathan Phan, aka Magic Asian Man. We've got Crystal Curio, and we've got Daniel Gastelum, DHP Gastelum. And we are just originally it started out as a conversation about Asian magicians on the anniversary of the 103rd anniversary of a fucking racist piece of shit American magician who performed as a Chinese magician for many years who got shot and killed, not killed, but shot, fatally shot on stage during the bullet catch routine. And then died the next day, which is now today, 103 years ago. And then we just started kind of chatting about just the entertainment industry in general. And now Daniel's a musician and a magician. And then Crystal here is a variety artist who was recently featured on the Go Big show. And things like that. And we're just chatting. And if there are any questions you have about what we're talking about, why we are so riled up, please ask us, because we will tell you. We're not here to blame anybody or to shame anybody or to play the victim. We're just here to talk about our experiences and things like that. What did you want to say, Dan?
I'm interested in getting your guys' take on this, because I feel like it's such a sustainable cop-out for people. For when they make a bigoted remark or a joke, they'll say, well, I'm just playing a character. Like,
listen, okay, you know what I'll say about that is that we all know that I absolutely play up how Scottish I am. I spend time in Scotland, but how Scottish I am is not the amount of Scottish you hear. It was not a thing that I didn't bring about until bring back until 2012. And so I was not, anyone who's met me in high school, middle school knows, I'm not that Scottish. Because I was just American is fine with me, this'll be fine. I was American for many, many years. So it wasn't until I joined the Magic Castle and certain things happened that I was like, oh, Scottish, yeah, people respond well to the Scottish thing. That's fine. You can ask anyone who's performed at the, the Fringe Festival in Hollywood, the LA or the Hollywood Fringe Festival. I met with Scottish people who were like, oh yeah, you should do that all the time, that's grand, and all sorts of things transpired as a result of it. And yeah, does it get thicker when I drink? Absolutely, yes. And now, yes, I know I'm being a bit basic and having some White Claw, but this is my 9th consecutive hour of live streaming. I've had a bunch of drinks, I'm gonna take it a bit easy, and then maybe we'll go a bit harder later on.
Wait, later on, Nathan, you should rest at some point.
Meh. Rest is for the weak. So what I will say, and what were you talking about? We were talking about kind of
the idea of bigots using racist jokes and remarks as
sure.
a
Oh yeah,
excuse.
exactly. And I absolutely. So anyone who knows me knows I'm Vietnamese American, but also Scottish. That doesn't mean I don't walk out on stage playing the bagpipes in a kilt eating haggis. I absolutely could, sure, but at some point that's just not clever writing, scripting, or comedy. There's nothing clever about that. You're just playing up the utmost tropes and plucking the lowest hanging fruit, and there's nothing clever about that. There's nothing desirable about that, and maybe that was that could have been instilled in me when I was attending the Orange County School of the Arts, majoring in writing for 4 years. But outside of that, there are a lot of people who will claim certain things or do certain things. That's just not clever. That's also harmful. Worse, it's harmful. And so I refuse to do anything that's harmful, and I have struggled with certain bits in my act throughout the years, and I'm not sure what to do with certain things. Scott Hitchcock says the flames bit was the only improvised piece that made it into Clue. Yes, flames
on the side of my face.
And Scott Hitchcock also says it would be lazy comedy. Absolutely. I think that's the thing. A lot of people say oh, well, people complaining about non-PC or killing comedy. It's no. You're complaining about being a lazy comedy writer. And I oftentimes joke about how it's one thing to be offensive toward a group of people. It's another thing entirely. I'm not offended as an Asian person when you make fun of Asian people. I'm not. I'm offended as a comedy writer when you write lazy comedy. That's honestly what I'm offended as. And the fact that it offends an entire race of people, I'm a selfish bastard, so that takes second place in my mind. But yeah, there are absolutely a lot of considerations to have in mind, and that's what we're here to talk about. It's just how life breaks down. Oh yeah, life goes on long after the life is gone. I don't know.
Who cares? It's white music, right?
Yeah, white music doesn't even matter. Like, honestly, if you don't have a, what is the name of that instrument? It's that Chinese instrument with like, it's kind of like a violin but one string, and you pull on the thing and it's like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
God, I don't remember what it's called. But yeah, that's the only real instrument.
To anyone watching this now who does offensive comedy because it's your character, here are 3 other characters for you to consider. If you're a magician, I highly suggest being a war veteran, but not of any major world war, but of the Great Emu War of Australia.
Yes, we've talked about this. Yes.
How,
Continue.
And how you were under deep cover and learned card magic because emus love card magic. And this is how you were able to escape a slaughter at a mansion. And how you always feel like you're being watched by feathered beasts. You could be, if you're a musician and you're looking for a character, you could be Rivers Cuomo from Weezer if he went to therapy in 1996. Or if you're looking for a comedy character, might I suggest big 80s energy of Guy trying to convince David Copperfield to vanish other monuments in case he couldn't get the Statue of Liberty. Like, okay, so Liberty Bell, a little too small, totally get it. But Mall of America, when you think about it, what's more America than the Mall of fucking America?
I'm just glad they didn't call it the Great
Pretzels.
Yeah, I'm just glad they didn't call it the Great Mall. Like, it could have been way worse in those situations. Yeah, absolutely. And anyone who missed it earlier, I have really heavily debated doing a character called like Billy Bob Johnson with a heavy redneck accent in whiteface. Because, if we're talking about, white American magicians donning yellowface, why can't I go on in as Billy Bob Johnson? I'm gonna do the most offensive redneck accent I can imagine, and I'm gonna do all this magic that's themed around the most offensive parts of being redneck, like me wanting to bang my sister, who is my assistant dressed as Daisy Duke. All these things. If we're gonna if white people are gonna go for these things, then let's see how you like it when we do these things back at you.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Why? Well, who was he? Was it Dat Fan who used to do the bit? He's like, how would you like it if we just said baseball, airplane? Who was it? God, I can't remember.
Did you remember? I think it might have been at the time a BuzzFeed video with Jenny Yang, where it was basically if Asian people talk to white people like white people talk to Asian people.
Was it the jogger video where she's stretching and a white guy?
No, that was a different one.
That's a different one. Okay,
that was a different one. That was also a really good one. No, it's the one where I think Eugene Lee may have also been in this one, but I maybe because she's a woman, Jenny Yang just stands out to me. And the particular moment that stands out in my memory is when people tend to associate all Asians with chopsticks, right? And
even Dr. Seuss. Yes, continue.
Yeah. I think there was a moment where she tried to put forks in her hair. And then
fucking Ariel,
well, no, how people like to put chopsticks in their hair.
Oh, gosh, okay.
Instead of hair sticks or binya. She had this other moment that was just so beautiful to me, where she was like, pizza pie, a pizza pie. And it's that exaggerated stereotype of Italian chef that everyone knows, that's not a real thing. Just like our Asian stereotypes are not a real thing. If you haven't seen the video or you don't remember it, go look it up. It's hilarious.
Scott Hitchcock says she put a dingle hopper in her hair.
Pretty much.
Yes.
And also like follow Jenny Yang now. She is hilarious, and especially in the wake of these murders in Atlanta, but always, she is so informative and entertaining at the same time. But yeah. It's really interesting how people will just happily lump us all into one category and think that we all look the same when there's so
white people,
vast a difference.
Have you looked at yourselves? Hold on, I just want to say, white people, you think Asian people look the same. Have you looked at yourselves lately? I'm not saying all white people look the same, but as an Asian American who has casted musical theater and film projects in America, like literally straight out of college, I decided to produce my own musical with my own money that I made out of doing Superbad. Yeah, I was in that for half a second. I said, hey, submit to me for this thing, and a bunch of white people submitted, and I can't tell you how many of these white people submitted that looked exactly the same. And I'm not a racist. I mean, I'm a little bit of racist, but like I am well aware of the stereotype that lots of white people think Asian people look the same. But white people, have you looked at yourselves? Next time you watch your favorite television show, look at the actors and look at how many of them are white and how many of them have the same spatial distance between the eyes, the same rough nose, the same hair color. Like, these things are so incredibly... You know what I just heard about? And it's a success for magicians. My buddy Chris Ramsey, like, not like buddy, like we're super, super close, but like I know him and he knows me. Chris Ramsey sold his show to True TV. It's called Big Trick Energy, which is a play on Big Dick Energy, I think, and which is basically like it's like, what is it, the pranks, what's that prank TV show? It's like, it looks like it's that, not Punked, but the other one with the Impractical Jokers.
Yeah,
it looks like Impractical Jokers but for magicians, and it's 4 magicians doing basically Impractical Joker stuff, which is fine. But all of those motherfuckers look the same. It's 4 white magicians with like light strawberry blonde hair and beards and things. Like, you literally could not pitch this show and have any other looking magician but a white motherfucker on this. Really. Michael Carbonauer, you're fine because the show is about you. That's fine. But Big Trick Energy, a show about magicians, and you couldn't have anyone that didn't look like Deutschland, über alles. You couldn't have anyone else on this program. That's when I'm like, cool, you could have used this amazing platform to do something with it, and instead you just cast all your white motherfucker-looking friends. Yeah, alright, cool. Sorry, did I sound too bitter about all that? I apologize because I don't actually apologize. Crystal, what were you gonna say? Your nose, your finger was pressed to your nose. Say your piece, by all means.
Yeah, there were 2 things, and I forgot the second, but hopefully it'll come back as I say the first.
Yeah.
On the topic of how people think that all Asians look alike, realistically, we really fucking don't. Like, if you look at Koreans, we are
elementary school kids know this. Chinese, Japanese, dirty knees. Look at these. Like, they know we look different. Sorry, continue.
Sorry, I just terrible. Take a moment to like.
I'm gonna change my display name to Shin Lim.
Yes, please do, because let's wait until someone says, "Holy cow, Shin Lim!" What is it like? Someone will believe it. Yes, absolutely.
So if you look at, for example, many Koreans have very, very, very fair skin.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then if, just for example, there are many examples, but specifically off the top of my head, if you go to the Philippines, many of those people have very dark skin.
Yeah.
But we're all Asian. And also, like, some of my Filipino friends have very wide eyes. They do not have monolids. But my family, they have stereotypically thin eyes that are monolid. There is so much variation within the race of Asian, and it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, also, I want to bring up, and I feel like this is approaching my second thought, but I still don't really remember it. I feel like I have to just say to whoever is out there listening still, thank you for being here. Race is completely a construct.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're not aware of that, like
gender. It's like
exactly.
we fabricated these terms.
Yeah, and people,
to make it easier for some people.
Right. Genetically, scientifically, race barely exists. Like,
yeah.
we are 99.9% the same. Everything else is completely a social construct and completely subjective. And on the topic of gender, in fact, scientists have relatively recently found that even sex, because some people who are against like gender fluidity or queerness or transness, some people who feel that way,
J.K. Rowling. Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Cough,
so
right? They often base their arguments off of science, but relatively recently, scientists have found that sex itself exists on a spectrum.
Oh yeah.
And to someone like me, and probably you guys as well, this is not surprising.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, a lot of people don't know this. They don't teach this in science classes, although they should. There are so many people. In fact, one of my friends
puts together these science things. Is it white people? Is it old white men who put together these science?
I wonder.
Syllabi? Was it?
Yep. But even recently, one of my friends was telling me what I think is a really cool story of their friend who considered themselves trans and then found out, because genetic testing is very rare, right? Like, no one really has a reason to find out what their chromosomes say unless they're getting some sort of like fertility testing most of the time. But it just so happens that one of my friend's friends, who was a trans woman, happened to get some genetic testing and found out that genetically she was a woman, even though she presented male or masculine at birth.
Yep.
So I think that often what we're dealing with when we're talking about racism. I remembered my other thing. Okay. When we're talking about racism and when we're talking about prejudice when it comes to gender norms and queerness, etc., it's just people are so uncomfortable with things that they didn't grow up with things that they aren't familiar with, and it scares them. Okay, so the second thing that I wanted to bring up, that I think is becoming a more popular thought, idea, fact, but a lot of people still don't recognize, is the idea of racism versus prejudice.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, racism is structural, and a lot of people don't understand that. There is a power structure in which we are organized. And in our specific American power structure, it is white people at the top. And then maybe Asian people, and, then melanated people below that. But when you take it from a sociological point of view, it is impossible for a person of color to be racist against white people. It is entirely possible for them to be prejudiced.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Right? But the definition, the sociological definition of racism is that the people who are being racist have to be at the top, essentially. They have to be at the benefit. And
right. Yeah. By the way, Good morning, Gino.
Good
Who was
morning.
probably- yeah. Good morning, Gino. Yeah. What was it that I was saying? Welcome back. Sorry. I was. What was it? I read once that it is impossible to be sexist against men because sexism is built on a system of oppression because men have never been properly oppressed. It is you can't be sexist against men. I remember saying that once to somebody, and they're like, "What?" And I was like, and because I was met with resistance, I was like, never mind. I was
Right.
just saying a thing. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, it's absolutely possible to be prejudiced or bigoted
Yes.
against men, but being sexist against men is like, since they've like benefited from, millennia of patriarchy, is it really possible to be sexist against men? Give it another millennia. Maybe we'll find out.
Maybe.
Yeah. Once again, I am not blaming men for things. I'm also not saying that men are blameless. So, it all kind of depends. But once again, folks, I am Naathan Phan. I am not Shin Lim. This is Shin Lim. This is Shin Lim right here. We're having a conversation with Shin Lim from Las Vegas and Crystal Kirio about Asians in the entertainment industry. It started as magicians, and then it just changed, and it evolved, because that's the way society works. It evolves, and it changes, and you have to adapt with the times and do what you have to. And I also have friends in many multifacets. My magician friends are like among my least favorite friends. Most of them are terrible. And not just for like bigoted reasons. Like I consider myself first and foremost like a storyteller. And so my storytelling comes through when I am a musical theater actor doing that sort of thing, or doing stand-up comedy, doing whatever it is that I do. Like, if you've ever seen my act, you know I'm a storyteller. And through my storytelling, I do all sorts of things, right? Sometimes magic's the best way to tell the story. Sometimes impressions, stand-up comedy, whatever it is. Raconteur, as they used to say. But nowadays, it's just a bit different. And so I consider myself storyteller, but every once in a while I was actually, a couple of years ago, I was hanging out with a magician friend of mine while I was on tour, and he was like, "Nah, magic's all I got, man." And it made me so sad that he was like, "Magic's all I have." Like, Matt, that's all you have is magic? That's fucking depressing. Have something else! For the love of God, have something else for your own sake. Don't just only have magic. That's just really depressing. And you meet people, the magic casts, who are like lifelong bachelors or have been through 3 divorces because their greatest love in life is magic. And I'm like, that's just sad.
Is that sad? Yes. Could it be sadder? Yes. His only other thing could be a tie collection where all of the ties have playing cards on them.
Okay.
I want to believe that there's only 5 to 10 million people like that at the Magic Castle.
Okay, I'm glad you clarified about the playing cards, because I will say right now that in my room I have over 200 ties.
Oh, with just playing cards on them.
No.
That's what peak magician looks like. All of your ties have playing cards on them.
Only playing cards.
But don't forget, and I will say that there is an exception I've noticed with Asian magicians, because Asian no raisin.
Is that our dicks are bigger, right?
Absolutely.
Please tell me our dicks.
Personal experience, yes. But no, the stereotypical, and I realized this very quickly as I started working in the sideshow community and alongside magicians, stereotypically, magicians tend to not only be kind of like single and like their wife is magic, like you mentioned, but they also tend to bald really kind of early.
Sorry, what was that?
They tend to bald early. Yeah. But I noticed every Asian magician you've had on tonight has had a lovely full head of hair.
Yeah, I'm 87 years old, actually.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. You
Yeah,
look
yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
moisturize.
Yeah,
You know
Asians
what
are
it is?
amazing.
Asians, some people say Asians don't raisin, which I'm like, that's a lazy rhyme. That's Asians don't be aging. I don't know what the better way to put that is, but yeah, Asians, I don't know, however else to put it. There's only two sides to being Asian. There's the young side and there's the old side. We will look like we are like 24 up until we're about 60, and then one day we'll look like we're 140.
Yep.
And like there's only two ways. You either look like a baby or you look like you're Yoda. Like there's no in between. You will just one day wake up and be like, old I am. Fuck. Yeah, that's pretty much what happens. Absolutely.
People still think I'm like 10 years younger than I am.
You do look very, very young. I'm not gonna lie. You look very, very young. And you're only half Asian? What is
Yep.
it? Yeah, only half Asian. Imagine if you're a full Asian. You'd look twice as young as you are now.
And I will say, on top of that, on top of being only half Asian, I smoked for half of my life.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. And
that comes with being Asian, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And I quit about a year ago when COVID hit. But I sometimes I wonder, like, how much younger would I look more than I do now if I had never touched a cigarette?
Ooh. Oh, okay. I'm just saying to all that if you had never ever smoked a day in your life, there's no guarantee that you would look any younger. I'm just saying.
Oh my god. I love that you happen to have a stage cigarette on hand.
I do. It was I was working on I wanted to create a production of something.
Mm-hmm.
I have all these ideas for plays and things like that. I've also got this feature-length screenplay that I'm trying to get produced that is wonderful. But one of the ideas that I had for a stage play was called Richard the Third. And it was Richard the Third, but it was set in like 1930s gangland New York.
Mm-hmm.
Where, so like the part of the problem with Shakespeare is that the optics on it is they're like, oh yes, we all talk like this, and you deliver things in grandiose fashions. And if you've ever witnessed a theater production, like a Shakespeare production, outside in a park, you know why that is, because they're trying to project to those seats in the back. And the only way for people to hear you 1,000 yards away is for you to speak like this very clearly. It's the only way, right? And I know that, having done Shakespeare in a park in Newport Beach with the waves crashing just a few hundred yards away from me, while the sun is starting to set. It's the whole thing. And so I was like, okay, that's the only, so Shakespeare's inaccessible to many people. But what if you could phrase it and couch it differently? And so what if you could imagine, instead of someone saying, now was the winter of our discontent made glorious summer, if some guy walked out in a fucking fedora and trench coat, comes out, now was the winter of our discontentment. Glorious summer by the sun of York, and all the clouds that lower the powerhouse in the deep bosom of the ocean buried. Yeah, now our houses, bound by victorious wreaths, the bruised arms hung up for monuments, bruised arms hung up for, and like he goes on like this, and you get this cadence, and it's different and it's altered. Similar to Baz Luhrmann when he did that Romeo and Juliet. Like, it was in a different tonality and a different framework, and then people could identify with it. And so I want to do like this 1930s gangland New York Richard III, but as like a Prohibition era kind of gangster film. And I think it would be great, especially if the thing with Richard III, if you're not familiar, Richard III is about the guy with the withered hump who was ugly and 20th in line from the throne, but he was so charming and personable that you couldn't help but like him. Like, if anyone who's not familiar with Richard III, go and read it, because literally at some point he walks into the morgue. He kills a guy before the show starts. He kills a guy. And then he walks into a morgue and witnesses the widow mourning over the body of her ex-husband, her dead husband, her late husband. And he goes and he says, and she knows he's the one who killed him. And he's like, hey, how are you? And she's like, don't you talk to me. You killed my husband. He's like, yeah, I only killed him because I knew that your true love, the person you deserve to be with, is out there. And it's me. And she's like, I'm sorry, fucking what? And he's like, no. I sent him to heaven so that here on earth you could be with who truly deserves to be with you, and that's me. And she's like, no. And he's like, no. Here, take this ring. I want to marry you. And he gets down on one knee and he gives her a ring. And she's like, no, you're crazy. And he's like, no. Tell you what, here's a knife. If you think I deserve to die right now, he does this. Gives her a knife. Says, if you think I deserve to die right now, plunge this dagger into my heart. If you don't think I love you and I'm the one who deserves to be with you. And she's like, I won't take the life of another person. He says, fine, tell me to do it. I'll say the word. I will literally end my life right now. Tell me right now I'll do it. And she goes, no. And he, in this scene, convinces her to agree to marry him. A guy who's 20th in line from the throne with a hump and walks with a limp and is disfigured from birth. I can't imagine why an Asian guy in an American Anglo-normative society identifies with this character. But Gino was here, says, I subscribed. I have to get ready for work. See y'all soon. Deuces. Thank you, Gino, for tuning in. But it's just like this incredible turnaround. Like, how can a person accomplish this? And it's purely by charm. And so I think to myself, what if instead of the fact that he was physically disabled, that he was born out of wedlock, and maybe he was born of, someone who wasn't like pure Italian blood, and he was some Asian guy who was born into this family, but he's got such a silver tongue that you can't say no to him, that you have to be like, God, he's just so unassuming and nice and friendly. Like, how could I not agree to go along with him? And so I think that would just be like really, really interesting. And so that's my idea for what's called Richard the Third, because I think it would just be really, really interesting. But I love Shakespeare, and I love trying to find ways to contextualize it for human beings. I'm also working on a jukebox musical version of Midsummer Night's Dream, which is one of my favorite Shakespeare plays because it's very accessible and really, really fun. And what if instead of, it's absolutely Midsummer Night's Dream, but also you have people singing musical numbers that you recognize. Like, what if all of the lovers sing, bubblegum pop songs? Like, what if they sing Taylor Swift and Bruno Mars? What if in the middle of a scene, Lysander breaks out with Bruno Mars, I think I want to marry you, and then what if, all of the royalty sing only like big band swing? What if all of the fairy folk like Oberon and Titania sing like classic 70s and 80s rock? Like, what if fucking Oberon and Titania walk on and he sings shot through the heart and you're to blame, you give love a bad name? Like, what if this stuff happens? What if all of the players, the mechanicals who've worked for bread upon Athenian stalls only sing, they're all dressed like workers and they only sing YMCA songs? Not YMCA, Village People songs, right? Like, what if we can just frame these things in a different way and we can make it accessible to a large group of people? So this is what my brain does. My brain thinks of weird things and it's like, hey, it'd be great add a Village People song into the middle of Midsummer Night's Dream. And then the other part is like, that's stupid, don't do that. My other brain's like, is it though? And then that part of the brain wins out. Anyways, so yeah, my brain is weird, and I think of weird things. Someone else say something.
I don't think that's weird at all. You know, for me, and I feel like maybe you share this, if you are a like talented Shakespearean actor or even actor in Shakespeare, you will be able, no matter your audience, to convey what is going on. But the problem is when people think of Shakespeare, when people look at Shakespeare, there's like this weird, almost like classist intimidation.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that turns people off from even approaching the material. So the fact that you are looking at ways to make it more relatable and accessible to a common audience totally makes sense to me. You know, I have very strong opinions about Shakespeare and certain iterations of Shakespeare. Like, for me, I fucking love the Franco Zeffirelli version of Romeo and Juliet. It's
how great thou art. How great thou art. Yes,
it's so beautiful in so many ways. And, you know, I feel the same. Oh my God, why can't I think of his name? More recent.
Baz Luhrmann?
Nope. Definitely not Baz Luhrmann.
Kenneth Branagh.
Branagh. I think he has amazing interpretations of Shakespeare.
Absolutely, yes. God, I'm such a nerd. Continue, yes.
Baz Luhrmann, to me, I appreciate what he was trying to do.
Sure.
And I appreciate that he did accomplish what you are, I think, talking about with like attracting an audience that wouldn't normally look at Shakespeare or go to a Shakespeare show or listen to Shakespeare. But when I watch Romeo plus Juliet, there is so much stuff that happens in the editing, and specifically, like, for me, the epitome of the problem with Baz Luhrmann's interpretation of Romeo and Juliet is, you know, Mercutio's big monologue when he's talking about Queen Mab. It is such a beautiful fucking monologue. But the editing and the direction in his version is so distracting from the actor's amazing work.
It's like the editing of a fight sequence in a Marvel movie. You're
Yeah,
just like,
exactly.
I can't focus on the action. I can't focus on the thing that's happening here.
Exactly.
Too many cuts. Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like that is probably the best way to explain my problem with his iteration of Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
So, you know, again, to reiterate, I appreciate the way that he brought people who would normally not approach the material into the story, but I think he did a big disservice to the material at the same time.
Absolutely. And also, were there any Asian people in Romeo plus Juliet? Let's see, we had a black Mercutio. We had John Leguizamo as Tybalt.
Oh God, he was Tybalt.
It was Tybalt.
Yeah, he was Tybalt.
The Meg23 says, y'all ain't tired yet? I mean, whether or not we're tired is another thing entirely. I haven't been asleep since 6:30 a.m., which was 3 hours ago for us. I don't know. You know, it had nothing to do with the fact that we're not tired. It's just that my sleep schedule's real fucked up.
Yes, me too. I'm practically a vampire. But I think another part of this is that
we're being stimulated?
Yes, but also, like, one, we have been so isolated for the past year.
Yeah.
Two, we've been so discriminated against for the past year. And three, for the past week. And for me, largely my mourning and my grief has been alone or with people who don't understand my experience. Yeah. So, like, being here with you guys, it is so cathartic because when I say something, I know you know exactly what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
Absolutely, yeah. And that isn't to say that, people who aren't Asian can't understand what we're going through.
Right.
That's not what we're saying at all. It's just nice to... I honestly don't have many Asian friends. I just don't. I don't know why I don't. I just don't. And my siblings have way more Asian friends. I just somehow didn't make a lot of Asian friends. That's fine. That it is what it is. But to be able to get together, whether they're Asian people, and to talk about these sorts of things, especially people in the arts. Like the closest thing let's see, I've got 3 siblings. Let's see, my next closest sibling is an engineer who is inventing a robot to pick strawberries.
Nice.
Did you know that strawberries are
That's
picked
so
by
cool.
humans? That's cool. Did you know that all strawberries are picked by human hands?
Yes.
Yeah, it's because strawberries are low and to the ground, you have to pick them. But he literally has a patent for a gripper thing and a recognition software that can recognize a ripe strawberry and pick it, and if it fails, goes back and picks the strawberry again. So he's working on that. My other brother's in IT, as well as just is a gamer and loves D&D. And then I've got a sister who's an artist. She paints mostly watercolors, but also other mediums, and also is very much in D&D. And I'm kind of getting into D&D as well now. The Meg23 says, I consider you an Asian friend of mine. Well, thank you. Yeah. I'm honored. What was it? I had a friend once who, during a performance of a murder mystery show, someone had guessed, because they always fill in the piece of paper that says, I think it was so and so, and at some point somebody said something like, it was the Asian guy, and then my friend was like, I'm Asian too, and we all looked at him because he was clearly white, and he's like, yeah, Caucasian, and I was like, God damn it. All right, I'm gonna let you get that laugh line, and then we're gonna move on. We all moved on. And he was like, all right, we're just let's get a little laugh out here and then move on. So he knew. Yeah, there are so many things that are happening right now, and it's so great to just be able to chat with folks about just underlying kind of zeitgeist, I was chatting with a friend who's a computer programmer, application designer type person, very technology-based person, and he was just telling me about how he's been kind of a bit depressed lately, and I was like, yeah, it's just been rough lately, because even me, this whole pandemic, it's like a background operation taking up 15% of your operational capacity. No matter what you're doing, 15% of your mind is dedicated to the fact that this is hanging right here in the back of your mind. And he's like, holy shit, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah. I wish I'd thought of that. Next time you need to explain to a human being why you don't feel 100%, tell them that. Use it. It's fine. Because that's, I think, genuinely how we all feel. Nobody's 100% right now. Doesn't matter who you are. Nobody's 100% right now. Unless you're too stupid to realize that you should be 100% right now.
Florida?
Sounds about white. Sorry. Yeah. Continue.
But yeah, and then on top of that, I think most racial minorities, most people of color, have an additional 25 or more percent being taken up as well, and especially recently Asian people, because, and we've talked about this already, but I'm just going to reiterate, people still insist on calling it the Chinese virus or the China virus, and people in America don't understand the difference between Asian ethnicities, so they just put this blanket label of Chinese on all of us, and we all get hate and violence for it. I know so few Asian people who are not scared to leave their houses right now.
The only time I leave the house, I think, is when I need, my family's like, can you go pick this up? I'm like, yeah, all right, I'll go pick this up. Or when I go out on my walks with my friends, because I need to do I need to get physical exercise. Like, there's a treadmill in the house, but, like, there's a difference between a treadmill and physically walking, right?
Absolutely.
And so me and my friends, we will go for, like, a 5-6 mile walk. It's usually the same route, but, like, it's a little bit of, it's us wearing a mask, outdoors, chatting with each other, being each other's physical presence, but also walking a certain route. And it's just wonderful. Even if I'm depressed as fuck, I will still go on these walks because I know it will do something for me.
Yeah.
And then in between those days, I will do 2-3 miles on my treadmill, because I'm like, it's either this or I get fat again. And I know that people are like, you're not fat, Nathan, but also you have to realize I've got diabetes from both sides of my family. Like, the slightest amount of overweight could lead to my death.
Same.
Yeah, so fair, right? And I've actually, in the last, 3 months, I've lost 10 pounds. And,
Nice.
I didn't even realize that it was leading up to me being on Masters, which is good because I was quite heavy last year, for my standards at least. But just doing these things, they make a difference to you kind of mentally. And so you got to do these things to help yourself out. But where was I going with this? I don't know where I was going with this. But it's just life is an interesting thing, and sometimes you got to do things for yourself. And leaving the house, leaving the house. Like, there are times when I'm like, God, if I leave the house today, someone could literally shank me. Someone on the street could literally say, like, Chinese motherfucker, whatever it is. Like, it could literally happen. And I don't assume the worst out of human beings by any means, but it could literally happen any day of the week. And so it does definitely affect my desire to go outside.
Well, let me tell you,
Yes.
as someone with experience of coming to terms in real time that I might be attacked and killed, it took a while for me to leave the house.
Yeah.
But when I did, I always decided to do magic for any children in line. Because you're in the middle of a pandemic, your parents are paying for stuff, you don't want to be there, no one wants to be here, it's Target at 1 p.m., you should be having fun. So doing linking rings or a coin trick, it's some little joy to give them. But I also am not lying when I say I do a little more for Asian children in the event that this is it. And it's really grim to think about dying in a Target at 1 p.m. with kids, but that's just been on my mind for a year.
Absolutely. And I think that so many people in America, because white is the standard, they don't understand what it's like to have to think that way. And there was a video I saw today of I don't know if you guys saw, I think it was yesterday now, possibly the day before, where there was a shooting in a King Soopers in Boulder. And at least from what it seems, the people who were unfortunately killed were white people. And Boulder is largely a white town, right? And there was a man I saw a video of him talking about how it sucks that, he went to the grocery store to buy groceries and he has to worry about being murdered. And yes, absolutely, that is an American problem. We for sure have a mass shooting problem. We have a gun violence problem.
We what now? What?
But that kind of stuff is exponentially more for any person of color. And especially in the last week, since very recently, specifically, Asians have been targeted with gun violence, specifically hunted down by a white man. It's impossible to not have to think that way.
Yeah.
And not have to worry about that. And so many people just don't understand it. And I really hope, and I know it's probably not the case, but I really hope that video of that man being like, I can't even go to the grocery store and be safe. I really hope that video of that white man in Boulder helps some white people understand what it is like to have to live looking the way that we do. And again, I recognize that I look very clearly mixed, and I am very clearly mixed. And people who look more stereotypically Asian, people who have darker skin, people who look more like my mom and my uncles and my great aunts, like, they are going to experience this fear and this racism more often than I do. But like, people who look like us and people who look like my family, they do not have the luxury of not thinking that way.
Absolutely. I mean, look, this is definitely like a progression of, like, look, this is a progression of things. This is like the bars of reception. It's just like, as it goes from least to greatest. You know, it is what it is. It absolutely 100% is. So I get that, and it is. I am sad to say, I'm glad for the days it's wicked sunny outside that I can wear my sunglasses, and then people can't tell what shape my eyes are.
Yeah.
I literally am glad for the days it's too sunny, that I can wear my sunglasses when I go for my walks, because with my face mask and my sunglasses, just reduces the chances of people going, "Hey, wait a minute, coronavirus, you, China virus." I'm like, God, like, but with all these other things going on, it's like, okay, that the odds of that happening now, very slim. And I'm not that tan. I'm a bit olive toned, but I'm not quite as tan as I used to be, and you know, it's a thing.
I'll be honest, the last few months have put it in my head that I need to be prepared, because I came to terms even before the pandemic that for a lot of bigots, you really can't reason with them.
Yep.
And it's like yelling at the religious protesters at Comic-Con. You're not going to change anyone's mind. So the best thing you can do is embarrass them.
Mm-hmm.
So I now make sure to wear pretty flamboyant outfits in public, and I walk with a cane, and I have a speaker on my hip so I can figure out if someone's coming from behind or anything. But in the event that someone does pick a fight with me because I'm Asian, I can neither confirm nor deny. I have a shortcut on my phone to play Final Fantasy battle music on that speaker. And imagine getting your ass kicked to Final Fantasy music by a magician cowboy in the middle of a Vons. You wouldn't be able to live it down.
Final Fantasy music. I'm trying to. In my head, all I hear is the battle music from Pokemon. Is that what's the battle music for Final Fantasy? Yeah. Okay. No. Okay. The instant you did that, I'm like, all right. That's honestly all I needed. I don't know why.
I would do One Wing Angel, but I don't want to get you copyright strikes.
And honestly, if I did get a copyright strike from just that, it'd be racist. No other explanation. Can't be any other explanation. Once again, go ahead.
I've wanted to pop in and say that I really needed this talk. It's been a really rough week, and I love the people in my life who are supportive. But like you said, Crystal, it's hard to communicate with people who don't have a shared experience.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you guys and everyone on the call earlier. I'm a disabled magician, so it's really hard for me to get work even without a pandemic. And the one thing that helps me get through times like this, especially since I have a medical thing in a few days, it's awful movies. So if you ever, I don't know if you can show this, Nathan, but it is the end of a Filipino Batman musical.
Oh no. I don't think I can show this, but I know what you're talking about.
I'm just going to save that for myself because I need to watch that.
if you are watching this, first of all, you're a hero. Second of all, support Asian Americans, sex workers, LGBTQ community,
Yes.
and disabled Americans. But also, thirdly, go watch Filipino Batman, because with the news being
Fuck
so
the
dark,
Snyder Cut. Watch Filipino Batman.
why the fuck would you watch the Snyder Cut when Filipino Batman exists? There are lyrics in the musical. Go man go, Batman and Robin. Shoot man shoot, Batman and Robin. Praise the Lord, Batman and Robin. Go go go, Batman and Robin, because the Philippines.
Amazing.
And if anybody wants to check out what this is, I don't know if you can copy and paste this, but I think this is the link to checking out Filipino Batman. And it is, it's an experience. Now, the question is, however, not to go away from Filipino Batman, which is definitely worth our time to talk about. Have you ever listened to any of the music from Batman the Musical, written by Jim Steinman, who wrote most of Meatloaf's songs?
No.
Oh.
So I have to double check to make sure what year this came out in. I think this came out in early 2000s. Nope, not to be confused with Holy Musical Batman, which was a Star Kid production.
Yeah.
But there was an actual Batman the Musical somewhere around late 1998 to 2002, written by Jim Steinman, who did most of the music for Meatloaf. Apparently, Warner Brothers approached Jim Steinman and said, "You know, it'd be great, Batman the Musical. We want you to write it." And so he wrote a bunch of songs for Batman the Musical. If you go onto YouTube and look up Batman the Musical, you will find demo tracks that Jim Steinman created and sang and recorded as proof of concept. And it opens in this weird operatic thing that I have to assume is the opera that Bruce Wayne and his parents were at before they got shot and killed.
The Mask of Zorro?
Huh?
The Mask of Zorro?
No, it's this weird, although, kind of a little close, yeah. But it's like, in noctis penis, in the good night, like this whole thing goes on, and then there's this high, and it just goes on and on. And then there are all these numbers, including things like, we work the graveyard shift, I work the graveyard shift. You're like, what is happening? What am I listening to? And then it just goes on for and then there are songs by Joker and Catwoman falling in love with Batman, and there are all these, there's like this Gilbert and Sullivan type number, like, hey, where does he get those wonderful toys? Yeah, tell me, boys, where does he get those wonderful toys? Like, it's this crazy thing. Like, where did the Jewish get all of their oys? Where does Batman get all of these toys? You're like, what is happening? What is happening? Look it up. I literally didn't make up that lyric. Where did the Jewish get all of their oys, and where does he get all those wonderful toys? Is not a lyric I made up. That actually exists in this musical. And the only headcanon that I can accept is that Jim Steinman heard Warner Brothers asking for a Batman musical and said, this is a terrible idea. I can't tell them this is a terrible idea because they're paying me lots of money. So I will write a musical so shitty, they will have to say, no thank you. But also look like I tried.
I really hope you're right.
That's the only explanation I can come up with. And there are a couple, don't get me wrong, there are some numbers in there that I'm like, all right, that's kind of catchy. That's not terrible. Like one of them, there's this great number that the Joker sings, or he's like, ugh, God damn the Batman, and God damn all his wonderful toys. Where does he get 'em, boys? Where does he get 'em? This is literally word for word from the actual demo track. That's right. It's almost enough to make you forget that it's Christmas. That's right. It's Christmas, boys. I'll decorate the city in ribbons of blood. In every... And he sings like this. So Merry Christmas, Gotham City. Hope you drown in my flood. As I decorate the city in ribbons of blood. And it's just this whole... Like, that one's probably the catchiest number out of all of them. But it's just this crazy high tenor number while the Joker is there bleeding out internally, but he sings about decorating the city in ribbons of blood. It's wild. Check out Batman the Musical... Music and lyrics, as far as I know, by Jim Steinman. It says here on jimsteinman.fandom.com. In the 1998 to 2002 period, Jim Steinman worked on a musical based on the Batman comic book series to have been titled Batman, of course, and produced by Warner Brothers Theatre Venues, a new arm of WB aimed at competing with Disney, whose stranglehold on Broadway with such Disney theatricals productions as The Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, and Aida was and remained strong. David Ives was due to write the book. Steinman would, of course, contribute music and lyrics, and Tim Burton was reportedly chosen to direct, though he later downplayed his actual knowledge of the project. Anyways, but it's just this whole fucking thing. And if you look up Batman the Musical, Jim Steinman, you will find so many songs. At least 10 songs.
I'm really excited. Thank you for that information.
You have this information. Please look it up.
I know I said I was going to leave after talking about the importance of taking care of your communities and Filipino Batmaniac. But listening to that, I thought, wow, that's a terrible musical idea. I don't think anything can top it. And then I realized I pitched you an idea 2 years ago at the Magic Castle, Nathan.
How drunk was I? Continue.
Oh, it was bad. It was like Bohemian Rhapsody Irma bad. Which is real bad.
That's real bad.
And it's a good thing this is not going on the internet where anyone can steal the bit, but the entire idea is all of the promo material has orchestra, like instruments and aesthetics, all over the flyers. It says LA Phil, and then when you get there, it's just one guy who walks out with an acoustic guitar. Says, "Hi, my name is Phil. I just moved to LA about a year ago, and here's my one-man show. I kind of had to lie on the flyer, or else no one would show up. You can probably understand why the tickets were so cheap now. I will be emotionally devastated if you leave."
I could have sworn the guy was originally from Louisiana, which is why he was called L.A. Phil. It's because he was from Louisiana. But yeah, that worked. Yes.
So, DC, if you ever want to collab, I'm sure we could change it to Gotham Phil.
Gotham Phil. Like a Gotham Phil? Like, honestly, could it be any worse of a waste of 4 hours of people's time than the Snyder Cut? Don't get me wrong, I like the Snyder Cut. Was it necessary? Alright, yeah, whatever, sure. But also, like, could something else have been done with 4 hours of HBO Max's time? Yeah, absolutely. We could have had release the NC-17 cut of Robin Williams in Mrs. Doubtfire.
Doubtfire. Yes.
Yeah. There's better things to do.
On the topic of DC and superheroes, can you guys, I can't off the top of my head, can you think of any significant, like, Marvel or DC character that is Asian?
Amadeus Cho.
Amadeus Cho.
That is, like, in the movies right now?
No. Other than
Wong,
Jimmy
but...
Woo,
right.
Or Wong, yeah.
Oh,
I think it's Woo. Yeah.
Wong is... Okay, so I'm really biased because Doctor Strange is my favorite superhero of all time, but I also
Oh, you're
have to
thinking of Benedict Wong from...
Well, the character's name is Wong. He is
Yeah.
Dr. Stephen Strange's manservant, and they have
Yeah.
slowly but surely phased out the manservant part.
Yeah.
And,
Good.
So there's Wong, and that's really about it.
Yeah.
And he's a sidekick.
Yeah.
Which is not great.
No.
Yeah.
But also,
Uh,
Doctor Strange as a story is inherently imperialist. Cause
Yeah. And like we
the
don't have
ancient
that.
one? Yeah. The
Yeah,
ancient
I
one
was
who
gonna
they
say
then
we don't-
replaced with a white person?
Yeah. I was just going to bring that up, and we don't have to go into detail about it because I think we all probably have the same exact feelings about it. And if anyone has been paying any attention over the past couple of years, like they probably are not ignorant to the way we feel about it. But exactly, like there is no real excuse for casting a white woman in that role.
There really isn't.
There really.
Michael J. Gardner says, I literally just woke up and I can't tell this is a real conversation some fever dream was stuck inside of. Why not both? Porque no
more
los
like
dos?
the nightmare dimension. Am I right?
Yeah. And Natalia Leba says, got Ham Phil, the not quite kosher musical. Yes, I'll accept that. And also Kato from Green Lantern, also sidekick. All right, sure.
Green Hornet.
Green Hornet, yes. Green Hornet, not Green Lantern. But the only one that I know of is fucking Amadeus Cho, who was, I think, the 7th smartest person on planet Earth, who winds up replacing Hulk, right?
Yeah.
And I originally, one of the very first acts I submitted to Penn and Teller Foolas was me with a pad of paper and a deck of cards and a Rubik's Cube. And it's like, hi, my name is Naathan Phan, and I'm actually smarter than Amadeus Cho. Here's how I'm going to prove it. Here's what... I'm going to memorize this deck of playing cards. Shuffle the cards. I'm going to memorize it. And then you're going to name a number 1 through 52. And then I'm going to create a perfect Sudoku so that every number, every which way equals that number. I'm going to tell you what card is at that number, and I'm going to solve a Rubik's Cube at the same time. Okay? Shuffle. Give me a number. And they're like, 42. Great. And as I'm doing that, I'm like, great. That 42nd playing card inside the deck. Oh, shit. That's right past this 3 of diamonds. 4 of spades. And I'm writing down these numbers down. Or I hand off the card and I'm like, write these numbers down. 17, 15. And then at the end, sure enough, they're like, great. Add up these numbers across. Is that 42? That's 42. That's 42. That's 42. 42. This way, this way, this way. Diagonally. So it was a magic square routine. But with a number of the name inside the deck, and I knew what card was going to be at that position, and I also had a Rubik's Cube that I was going to solve, and then at the very end, I was like, great, is that? Yes, 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 yes. What was the card? Boom. And then I had these like, oh, I didn't fix this. And then I threw it up in there, and I caught it. It's like, only a genius could do that. Fuck you, Amadeus Cho. And like, that was like the end of the routine.
Nice.
Like, it was basically a big ploy to get Marvel to cast me as Amadeus Cho. I have the footage somewhere.
Oh my God. That's
It's
beautiful.
just, thank you. It was something along those lines, but it was only for people who knew who the fuck Amadeus Cho was. It was
Right.
It was super nerdy and super ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah,
Remembered-
and just because it was an Asian character, it wasn't marketable,
Yeah.
and that is most likely
why would
the
people
reason
want to
why
watch an Asian character? By the way, I don't know if either of you saw this or noticed this. Hold on really quickly before we get to you, Daniel, because you wanted to say something. You remember how a few months ago they were like, for the first time ever, Disney Plus or Disney, was it Disney Plus? Disney, what was it? Disney, their app, whatever
Disney
the
Plus,
app.
yeah.
Disney Plus.
Yeah, Disney Plus. We're gonna charge for a movie, and it's gonna be Mulan. And a bunch of people were saying like, we'll pay for it because we want to support casting Asian people in these big major motion pictures. All right. And then it went away for a while, and then they didn't charge for anything. And then a few weeks ago, they were like, hey, remember that Premier Access thing we were talking about? We're doing it again with Raya and the Last Dragon. And then the same people in
Yeah.
my Facebook feed said, hey, yeah, we'll pay for that because we want to see some Asian-based media. And that's when I realized, wait a minute.
Yeah.
They didn't charge for Hamilton or
They charged
Artemis
for Soul.
Fowl. Then they charged for Mulan. And then they didn't charge for Soul. And then they charged again for Raya and the Last Dragon. The only movies they've charged for have been Asian, specifically South/Southeast Asian. Sorry, East/Southeast Asian based films.
Yep.
That's the only movie they've charged for. I'm not saying Disney is racist. I'm not saying they did this
I am.
intentionally. Thank you, Shinlim. By the way, this is Las Vegas magician and America's Got Talent winner Shinlim. If anything he says offends you, take it up with America's Got Talent and Fremantle Media.
Oh man, this joke is gonna get me killed, isn't it?
Only if they figure out that you're not Shinlim.
Yes.
And honestly, what white person can tell the difference between Asian people?
Just gotta get a deck
None
of
of them.
cards and some Adobe After Effects.
Exactly. You forgot the black art. You need a shit ton of black art. Sorry.
That's not gonna make a lot of sense to non-magicians, Nathan.
This is true. It's just gonna sound racist as fuck. Look up black art. It's a thing. But, like, I just realized, like, the only two movies they charged for were Asian-based. And
Yep.
I had a friend who was like, that can't be right. A white friend. And they looked at that up and they're like, all right, this is right. And I'm going to say this at the very least screams of a microaggression. Because what it sounds like they said is that based on our research, we don't think that the anticipated intended demographics for people who want to watch Hamilton, urban, and the people who would watch Soul would pay for it. But the people who would watch Mulan and Raya the Last Dragon, they'd be willing to pay for it. So, like, at the very least offensive interval, it sounds like black people are poor and can't pay for shit, but Asian people, they'll pay for shit because they're rich and successful. And I was like, what the fuck? I'm not saying that was Disney's intent, but you can't tell me that doesn't reek of racism and microaggressions or macroaggressions.
Yeah.
Like, it's just that how could you not charge for this? You can argue that, hey, Disney Plus was just getting started, we can't charge for these things. But to go from, we were going to release this in 2 years, and hey, here's Hamilton on Broadway, the original cast, filmed, up close and personal, a ticket people would pay $300 ticket for, we're not going to charge for. And then to go from that to Mulan, which you've already seen before, Hamilton you haven't seen, Mulan you've seen before, here's our shitty remake, we're gonna charge you for that. And then Soul, here's a brand new original animated film by Pixar that you all love the shit out of. Because let's face it, these Pixar animated films are beautiful and you will weep your eyes out and you're gonna love it. But it also is featured around a black character. We're not gonna charge for it. And then to go back to Raya and the Last Dragon and not charge for that, and then immediately go to any other Disney film that they release on Disney Plus and not charge for that, doesn't seem right. Once again, I'm not saying Disney Plus is racist. I'm just saying the evidence does not speak kindly for you, Disney.
Yeah. At the very least, the optics are bad.
Not great, yeah.
Real bad. And like,
Michael J. Gardner says model minority ticket gouging. At the very least, that's what it reeks of. Yes,
Yep.
absolutely, Michael J.
Yep.
Gardner.
And like, did you watch Soul?
I did. Yes,
Did you like it?
I did.
Did you think it was a great movie?
Not as good as what was that? The Inside Out.
Yeah.
Not as good as Inside Out. Not as honestly, not as good as
Most
many of the
maybe?
Disney Pixar films I'd seen.
Yeah, and just while we're on this topic, this is kind of a tangent, but I personally would say I have the same opinion of the Princess Frog. So
Okay.
while we're here talking about race, I feel like Disney has done a significant disservice to the Black community.
Speaking of
But
which, sorry, Michael J. Gardner says, would it be worse if Hamilton/Soul was a paid premiere and Mulan Raya was free? No, it wouldn't be.
it would be just as bad.
It would be just as bad. Like, I'm not complaining because it seems to be directed at Asian people. I'm just saying, like, this is a weird conflagration of coincidences. But honestly, it doesn't matter who it targets.
Yep.
Not great optics. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
sorry, but Crystal, you were saying
yeah.
Princess and the Frog.
Yeah. So, I mean, my point with that is just that I feel like Disney has consistently not put as much work into their films about Black characters. You know, and I feel like with the Princess Frog, they I think, if correct me if anybody knows differently, I believe they released it earlier than they intended to. I feel like they rushed the production. And personally, I thought it could have been a much better story. And also, I feel like we've all heard at this point, there is a certain amount of problematicness with the Black main character being an animal for the majority of the movie.
Okay.
Yep. And Soul. So I've watched this relatively recently, but I've already blocked out most of the problems that I had with it because I was just like, I was so sad about it. But I feel like even though it was centered around a Black character, it still focused on the little Tina Fey white character a little bit more. But regardless of the specific problems, it really wasn't that impactful, in my opinion. And did you watch Burrow by chance?
No, I didn't.
So Burrow is the short film that was supposed to precede Soul in theaters. And when I watched Soul on Disney Plus, it recommended Burrow directly after. When I watched Soul and Burrow directly after, Burrow was the more impactful, honestly. Which, first of all, you're talking about a short film. Second of all, it's a short film about an animal. It's about a bunny. So, like, when that is the case, when I feel more attached to a short film about a bunny than a feature-length film about a Black person, I feel like there's a problem. But anyway, getting back to the original topic we were talking about, I think that there is definitely something to what you have noticed with Disney Plus charging for only Asian-focused movies since
and once again,
COVID
I'm not the
happened.
first person in the world to think that I must be
No.
racist. I'm really not. But the fact of the matter is, the only two films that they have charged for in the 5 or 6 movies that they have released as Disney Plus movies, exclusively on Disney Plus, have been the two Asian, specifically East/Southeast Asian movies, have been the ones they charged for, is at least worth noting.
Yes, absolutely. And
Yeah.
especially in a time where violence and hate crimes toward the Asian American community is on the rise. I have a really hard time understanding what the logic there is.
Yeah, sorry, Michael J. Garner says, agreed, but this could be true, and unrelated. I'm not defending the dumb decision to charge for these, but as an Asian, I have to balance optics and intent. Absolutely. And like I said, I am not claiming Disney did this out of racist reasons. I am saying that this did happen specifically for the two Asian movies, and that is worth at least paying attention to.
Yeah.
That's what I will say.
And also, I think that the thing that is racist about this situation is the fact that no one out of the entire massive corporation that is Disney, no one connected those dots and thought like, hey, this might not look great for us.
Michael J. Garner says, haha, true. Exactly. I'm not saying it is racist. I'm just saying you can't ignore how they're connected. Because the last time I felt like I should support this project that is featuring Asian actors was when Mulan came out, and no other time. If someone knows of a time when Disney charged for premiere access that wasn't about Asian characters, please tell me. I will be more than happy to be wrong. I'm more than happy to admit that I'm wrong. When people point out to me, they're like, oh, actually, this isn't true because this happened in this year, or whatever it was. Absolutely. I'm like, you know what? You're right. I didn't know that. I didn't see that. I admit that. Fantastic. Thank God. Okay.
Yep.
This wasn't the case. And nothing would bring me more joy than to admit that. It's like that coincidence around the time that, hey, you know what's really interesting? The fact that Mythbusters was this great program that featured science and education, and the year that it finished, 2016, was also the year that Trump got elected. The year that a huge program that promoted science and education and the scientific method was taken off the air was also the same year that Trump was elected. I'm not saying that we stopped thinking critically when Mythbusters went off the air. I'm just saying that's a weird coincidence, isn't it? You have to admit, that's a weird coincidence.
Yeah.
That the same year we stopped promoting the scientific method on national television, we elected Donald Trump as president. It has to be noted as a thing that literally is fact. That's a thing. And Michael J. Garner says, also with the controversy surrounding Mulan release, don't go messing with Raya. Hey, you know what? I actually haven't seen either yet. I am aware of the weaknesses and the failings of Mulan. I watched an hour-long video of a Chinese American talking about how it's like Mulan, the original film, did these things right. The live action one did so many things wrong from a ethnic and standpoint. Oh, I don't know the right term. But yeah, so it's very, very interesting. I've yet to see Raya yet. I want to see Raya, but also once I noticed the coincidence, I was like, I'm not gonna pay for Raya until it's free, because what better way? As they say in the entertainment industry, the audience votes with their feet. If a show sucks, they walk out. If the show's good, they walk in. So I will watch it when it comes out for free. And Michael J. Gardner also wants more Nathan drunk conspiracy theories. These aren't conspiracy theories. These are just me saying, is it weird that this is a coincidence? That's all. I'm not claiming there's a conspiracy against Asians. I'm really not. But also, have you noticed these things against Asians?
Yep.
You can't say it's a conspiracy theory that in the last year, hate crime has dropped, but anti-Asian crimes have gone up.
Yep.
Ever since what's his name? I can't remember his name. What's his name? The guy, orange guy with the hair. Said it. Hey, Tramp.
Trump.
Trump.
I don't know.
I don't remember. Whatever his name was, the president for the last 4 years, started talking about the China flu, the Kung flu, the Wuhan virus. Like, you cannot tell me it's a pure coincidence that the instant the president of the United States of America started attributing this pandemic with a specific group of people, that anti-Asian crimes went up. You can't tell me that's a coincidence.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael J. Garrett says, but in a separate show, because I have to go for now. Keep it up. Thank you for tuning in for as long as you have. Anyone who's still watching, once again, I'm Naathan Phan, and I'm just rambling with my friend Crystal Curio here, who has been recently featured on the Go Big Show. If you haven't seen it, TBS. Is it on like TBS On Demand or whatever it is?
Yeah, and if you have Hulu Live TV or whatever premium Hulu thing, you can watch it there too. But TBS.
Absolutely. Michael J. Garrett says, not that is causation. I don't know what that means. Causation
versus correlation. So
correlation is not causation, absolutely, and correlation is not causation, absolutely. Caucasian correlation is not Caucasian. Yeah, sure, absolutely. But you have to admit that sometimes these are just like, well, that's an interesting coincidence, isn't it? And you only have to be at the receiving end of it for so long before you're like, that I really have a difficult time saying that's a coincidence for so long.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Michael J. Gordon says, now that is causation. Once again, I can't say that's causation. I will just say that, isn't it weird that this is the confluence of events? Like, we have a series of unfortunate events. It's like, when are we going to have a series of Caucasian events? Like, let's just take a look at this and be like, that was a weird order for things to happen in.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also really interesting too that, so for anybody who doesn't know, even though Mulan featured a entirely Asian cast, it was written by white people.
Yep. Go ahead, go to IMDb right now and look up the writing, the people who wrote Mulan the animated film, and then look up people who wrote Mulan the live action film, and you will see Mulan animated, Asian writers. Look up Mulan live action, white writers.
Yeah.
Why this is, I don't know. Some people will argue that it was to placate China. Like a lot of people say that here in America, Mulan was a hit. It was a success. People were happy about Mulan. Asian Americans, Chinese Americans were happy about Mulan, the animated film. However, in China, they're very unhappy because Fa Mulan is this classic story, and it actually, a lot of people visiting from China, I've heard stories about people visiting from China, going to Disneyland, Disney World, and being unhappy with meeting Mulan because, well, Fa Mulan violated Chinese principles and did these things. However, the recent Mulan live action placated a lot of these Chinese concerns, purely Chinese concerns, but made a lot of Chinese Americans very unhappy. And it's just that is what I've heard. What have you heard, Crystal? Tell me. Being partially Chinese American.
I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it also, the live action Mulan, I feel like it tanked in China, didn't it?
I actually don't know. I heard, and once again, this could absolutely be propaganda. I heard that the new Mulan went over quite well in China, but who knows?
Well, I do remember that it was created in partnership with the Chinese government. But I don't know.
I will say, okay, let's see here. The writing credits for Mulan 1998 went to Robert D. Dan-Souci, based on a story by, and then the screenplays were by Rita, I'm going to mispronounce this, Shao, which is Hsiao, Chris Sanders, Philip Lezebnik, Raymond Singer, Eugenia Bostwick Singer. that's who the stories were about. At least we had Rita Shao. Cool. Okay, let's take a look at Mulan. And that was Mulan 1998. Mulan recent in 2020, which did feature Donnie Yen and a bunch of other. Let's see who the writers were.
And
Rick
what-
Jaffa, Amanda Silver, Lauren Hynek, Elizabeth Martin, and Anonymous. Suggested by the narrative poem, The Ballad of Mulan.
Yep.
Directed by Nick Caro, I don't know, Caro. Right.
Not an Asian guy, probably.
I'm just saying that a majority of East Asian and Southeast Asian languages are monosyllabic. Anyone who's not aware of this, a lot of a majority of like particularly Chinese, Vietnamese, I think even Cambodian, Laotian are monosyllabic.
Yeah.
But the entire languages are single syllables. Like even the word Vietnam is 2 syllables. Vietnam. That's why when you hear the people talk about the Vietnam is 2 syllable, it break to 2 words. Like it's just it's a monosyllabic language. That's why when you hear the people talk this way, it sounds that way because it is a monosyllabic language. There are multisyllabic Asian languages, Japanese being one of the most notable occurrences of that. But Chinese, Vietnamese, and many other languages, monosyllabic. So when you hear about these things, tons of words, it's like, that's not the way these languages work. It's monosyllabic. So to hear all of the, like, to hear any name associated with a thing that is multisyllabic, you're like, well, that's probably not a direct Chinese influence on this thing. Is that correct? Yes? Tell me if I'm wrong.
I mean, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And once again, folks, I'm not trying to blame anybody. I'm not trying to be a victim here. I'm just stating, based on my experience, this is what I found to be the case. And, yeah, does Walt Disney want to claim differently? Listen to that name. Walt Disney. Does he want to claim differently? Does that company want to claim differently? All right. Credentials. Papers, please. Tell me what you are seeing and saying right now.
Papers, please. I think that is the best possible thing to say for so many people of color.
Wait until, like, on the one hand, obviously, Nazi Germany was terrible. Obviously, for many, many reasons.
Yep.
However, I am actually very excited for the day when any Americans can say, paper, please, and you have to present them with your vaccination papers. And be like,
Yep.
Papers, please! And it's like, here's proof of vaccination. Because for anyone who's not familiar, before March of last year, over a year ago, I was performing mostly on cruise ships. And it was like the Wild West. It was awesome. However, with all the things that have happened recently, I'm actually really, really, really hoping that cruise ships nowadays, or in the upcoming years and months, will be requesting either proof of vaccination or saying, hey, you know what? If you're vaccinated, business as usual. If you're not vaccinated, we're charging a premium. There's an extra X amount of fee, and you have to be segregated to a certain section of the ship, and you cannot interact with the rest of the ship like a normal passenger.
Or even better, you're not even allowed on the ship.
It would be better if they weren't allowed on the ship, but like many casinos, this is a business revolver.
Absolutely, yeah.
Money. So they'll probably just charge a premium and then say, you're relegated to these 2 floors. You can't go to these X number of bars. but you can be on the ship. In a perfect world, you won't allow unvaccinated people, period. But
Yeah.
who knows?
Going back briefly to Raya, and the thing you noticed about Disney and Disney
Yes,
Plus.
go on.
I think it's really interesting that they released a movie that they thought would be popular amongst the Asian community that tanked. And then the next time they release an Asian movie that was produced correctly with Asian input and Asian voices, they charge again. And this one is apparently worth it. I've heard nothing but good things about Raya.
I mean, I was hoping nothing but good things since I heard about the project. I
Yeah.
was like, God, please let this be good.
Yeah, absolutely. But like at this point, I'm like, am I going to pay $30 to watch this?
On top of whatever else I'm paying per month?
Exactly. And first of all, that sucks. And second of all, I think you made a really good point earlier that honestly I hadn't even thought about before tonight or this morning. And that is, because of the model minority myth, because of the fact that we are often thought of as the richer minority, the better minority, they would expect us to have the money and be willing to pay that money for the thing. Like,
and the fact that they didn't charge for projects like Soul and Hamilton, which revolve heavily around African American or black characters, and they didn't charge for those, just makes you go, ooh, that reeks of so much microaggression. That reeks of so much just like, oh, that's not good optics.
Yeah, no, not at all. And like on the one hand, I think it is cool that they offered Hamilton for free.
Yes, absolutely. When they did, I was genuinely surprised because I would have paid to see Hamilton. Yes.
Because like for anyone watching who doesn't understand, tickets for Hamilton were like generally a minimum of $200.
That's for nosebleed seats.
Yeah.
Up in the $200.
And for me, one of the main problems, I have multiple problems with Hamilton, but one of the main problems for me was that it was theoretically written for people of color, but it was not accessible to those people of color.
Okay.
My secondary problem is that while I understand the intention, and I think the intention was good, and I appreciate that there were more roles created for people of color and only people of color, it was kind of going back into the 90s experiment of colorblind casting. Not exactly, but for me it has the same root problem where it ignores the real lived experiences of people of different races. Like, does it make people think of things a little differently to see a person of color in a role of someone who was white historically? Sure, maybe, but the people that really matter, probably not. And it also ignores the fact that, like, a lot of those white men were very problematic because they were white.
Yeah.
And I have the same problem, honestly, even with Bridgerton, even though it's supposed to be like an alternate history. They really didn't try that hard. And it's like, and I have the same problem with Joker for different reasons, not racial reasons. But they make the big problem basically a footnote. You know what I mean?
I've not seen Joker, so I
okay. So have you seen Bridgerton?
Nope.
No, okay. So Bridgerton is
I know what it's
theoretically
about. I've not seen
right,
it.
but it's theoretically an alternate history. Except the only ways they've actually kind of made it an alternate history is by creating this world in which apparently there was a black queen, and the queen that they have, she historically is most likely actually the second black queen of England. But they created this fantasy world in which the English king married her, and all of a sudden, magically, people of color were accepted in England and in the Western world.
Gotcha. All right.
Right? And if they had done just a little bit more work, I think it could have been something that was acceptable. But to me, I wasn't looking at an alternate reality where people of color were being forced to be accepted. I just saw England as it was, with people of color in a Western world, in Western clothing, where the largest, for example, because African or Black people were largely the focus of this show, as far as like the diversity aspect goes. The biggest, the most obvious evidence of their culture even beginning to come through was like a head wrap in maybe like one or two scenes for one of the Black women. And maybe like the wigs of the Black Queen, who was, for the record, and not saying that colorism is okay in any way, shape, or form, a very light-skinned Black woman.
Yeah.
But there was one scene where one of the main characters' fathers was like, the king married a Black woman, and so they gave us this nobility, and we have to be extra perfect. And that was pretty much the entire thing for the entire season. Like that was the only mention, the only realistic thing that they mentioned the entire season with respect to race relations. And so, I think that gives you an idea of what I mean when I say it was basically a footnote and kind of just an excuse to do colorblind casting without technically doing colorblind casting. And I feel this Joker, like I said, it's not a race thing, but I feel like the whole concept kind of hinges on the idea that mental health is largely ignored in America. His whole thing, was basically like the dude who went around shooting Asians last week is like, he was a white boy who had mental health issues and had a really bad day.
Really bad day.
Yeah.
Fucking Daniel Powder, because you had a bad day. You shot up a spa. You shot up a spa. You shot up another spa. You killed. It's like, wait, what? What?
Yeah. But like, even so, I mean, first of all, it was a terrible movie, in my opinion. And things that were supposed to be unpredictable were entirely predictable. But the whole mental health issue that I feel like they were really trying to like lean on was again a footnote. They mentioned it in like one scene, and that's it. Yeah.
There are lots of problematic things among many projects. The best thing we can do is really like, is this weird to anybody? And
Yeah.
sometimes you're like, you know what? That's just you. And if that's just you, that's fine. But if other people are like, wait, yeah, that is weird, then you're like, oh no, am I on to something? Damn it, I didn't. I was kind of hoping everyone would just tell me I'm crazy for thinking this thing. I'd much rather be told, you're thinking too hard about this. It's
Absolutely.
like, although on the one hand, like that's kind of gaslighting. That could be gaslighting.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, that could absolutely be like, you know what? The general consensus agrees. This isn't how this was intended.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
then when a bunch of people come back to you saying, "Oh no, yeah, actually I see that. Oh,
Yeah,
oh."
absolutely.
Then
And
you're
I
like,
think, oh, go ahead.
no, I was just like, then you're just like, shit, I was right.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of white America doesn't understand about most communities of color is that we really wish we were wrong in most instances.
Absolutely.
Like, I would love it if someone were just like, you know what? Here are the facts that maybe would prove your point of view wrong. Like, you're not really being discriminated against as much as you think you are. I would love that.
I would love that so much too, because I'd be like, thank you. Okay, good. I was just thinking too much. Actually, these things are like, I would love it if it was something. Actually, when the Republican, what was it, committee held their thing, that wasn't a Nazi rune in the stage.
Oh my
that was
God.
built out of. Like, I would love just like, actually, this symbol, or actually archaeologically, or just geographically, this is the most efficient way to create a stage. Like, this is fine. Actually, St. Albert's Hall has been building stages and things this way for generations, which actually wouldn't necessarily help. But, you know, like, when you're like, is this what I think it is? This looks familiar. Does this echo from things in Nazi history? It does? Oh, okay. Someone tell me I'm wrong. And I was like, we can't tell you you're wrong.
Yeah.
Sorry. You're like, shit.
Yeah. And just to say the thing, there are many people of Scandinavian descent who actually come from Vikings, whose rune that was originally, who are also, and again, like, they are white people, so they don't experience the same amount of prejudice that we would. But at the same time, like, they have had this rune stolen from them by bigots, and their rune, their symbology is being misrepresented. And I also think that's important to recognize, like, these people are just so fucking disrespectful of so many different kinds of cultures. It doesn't even always matter what the race is. As long as they feel like they can benefit from it, they're going to take advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. There's something else I was going to say and I forget, but that's okay.
That's fine. We can have this conversation any other time we want. Everyone, I think I'm going to probably, it is almost 8 in the morning. I think I'm going to call it a night. For everyone who is unaware, I've been live streaming since 9 p.m. How many hours ago was that? That was 11 hours ago. 11 hours ago I started live streaming.
It's like almost half a day.
Yeah, don't tell me those things. Oh no, Victoria's like, oh, good morning. No, you have literally, tuned in last night while we were talking, went to sleep, and then woke up a full night of sleep, and we're still here. That's not good for me. Just me personally, not for the Asian race. We've been talking about many wonderful things, and I will leave these videos up for anyone who wants to watch for 11 solid hours, basically, about these things. Feel free to watch and comment, and you can send me messages, and we can talk about these things. That's absolutely fine. I will, however, say that Victoria says, you are crazy. Crazy. I don't like the word crazy because it's dismissive. I will, however, say that I have literally been live streaming since 9 p.m. Just 6 minutes shy of 11 hours ago. Oh no, you know what I just heard outside? There's an elementary, a primary school across the street from me. There's also a lady who helps people cross the street. I just heard the whistle of the lady helping people across the street to go to school. Is what I just heard outside my window given the fact that I haven't gone to sleep yet, that's not great. Victoria says, we just woke up. Congratulations. Good for you. I haven't gone to sleep yet because I'm a madman. Because I'm sick in the heat and there's nothing I can do about it. But outside of that, everyone, I am Naathan Phan. Some people call me the Magic Asian Man, as you can tell from the little thing here. This is Crystal Curio. Recently on the Go Big show, we are Asian Americans who have just been talking about being Asian Americans in the entertainment industry for many, many hours. Many, many hours. Like I said, I started at 9 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time last night. 4 minutes shy of 11 hours ago. And I'm still talking with a person here right now. But I think it is just about time for me to crawl into bed and pass out. Funny thing is, I will probably crawl to bed and not be able to pass out for about another hour. That's honestly, that's probably what's gonna. I'm gonna turn on my projector and watch. I'm probably gonna watch Blacklist for the next 2 hours or The Muppet Show. And then at some point, I will notice myself nodding off, and then like, finally sleep has come to claim me. Take me into the deep abyss of nothingness. That will probably happen in about 2 hours from now. But until then, I will stare into the void and dream and hope for the sweet release of REM? What is it? Rapid eye movement. I will dream of rapid eye movement for the next 2 hours. That's probably what's going to happen. But you know what? That's life. You don't always get what you can't always get what you want. That's about what's gonna happen. Anyways, folks, I'm Naathan Phan. This is Crystal Curio. You can check her out at Crystal_Curio. Instagram, is that what your handle is?
Twitter, Instagram, yeah.
Yeah, excellent. And you and I are gonna have to grab a drink, not in the public eye, very, very soon. Because one of the things I've realized at Facebook, there are people I agree with very, very heavily, and the people I disagree with. And the people I disagree with, I axe immediately. Not because I want to live in an echo chamber, because that's not what I go to Facebook for.
Yep.
It's just not. And hey, if you're on Facebook and you disagree with me...
Hi, Victoria.
Hi, yes, Victoria says, hi, Crystal, nice to meet you. Yeah, she's a quality human being. This person right over there. But if you disagree with me on Facebook, that's fine. That's just not what I go to Facebook for. And if you're truly my friend, you can reach me outside of Facebook. And if you can't reach me outside of Facebook, you probably weren't my friend to begin with. But anyways, Kristen and I will probably have no more conversations before long. But everyone else, go to sleep. I can see the number of people still watching. You are sick in the head as I am, and I love you for it. But I'm going to call it a night in 2 hours, probably. Crystal's going to call it a night. Victoria is just calling it a day, whatever it is. But thank you so much for tuning in for Asian Americans and Asian Canadians and Asian whatever it is discussing being a part of the magic and the entertainment industry and all that jazz. And now a time as ever to look into these things. If you really want to support, here's a really, really basic, wonderful foundation to support. Go check out stopaapihate.org. That's Stop Asian American Pacific Islander Hate.org. Check that site out. You can literally report hate crimes. Whether you are Asian or you witness a hate crime against an Asian, you can report that because there's very few numbers when it comes to Asian Americans reporting hate crimes because we're like, well, we're minorities. Why should we complain about shit? We should complain about shit, and it should be registered, and that's a thing where you could do it. StopAAPIHate.org. To everyone else, thank you so much for tuning in. I need sleep. What is this? I don't know what this is.
Finish it.
But I drank it. And it is time for sleep. Thank you so much for tuning in. Get sleep. Until the next time, stay tuned. Stay safe. And keep buggering on. Good night, everyone.